Hello, everybody. Welcome, Arvanauts, to day 54 of Adventures in Middle-earth, the Wilderland Adventures, the Crossings of Selduin. This is sponsored, as always, by Cubicle 7. Thank you so much to our sponsors. And thank you to all of you for being here, and thank you for your patience. We are getting started a little bit later today because we had a couple of player situations that popped up, which meant that we had to kind of scramble a bit and reschedule and do some things to get everyone kind of coordinated. But we are here and we are ready to play, and we are ready to keep moving with this really awesome campaign that I have had a lot of fun lore mastering, LMing, I guess. I guess I'm lore master for this, GM for Esper Genesis, and DM for D&D with Infinity and Beyond. So, and of course with GOG as well. So I'm DM, LM, and GM, whatever the situation is there. So, but that's the deal with that. But I am here, and we are here and ready to go. And before we get started, just a couple of reminders about ways to support the stream. If you haven't done so already, please follow the channel. That's always the best thing to do. Check us out on YouTube with !ArvTube. Twitter is !ArvTweets. The situation with the Discord is !ArvCord, where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. That's always a good thing to do. You can find out about all of this on arvaneleron.com. And on the financial side, our shop, our merchandise area, which has stuff for Infinity and Beyond, which is my Curse of Strahd campaign at the moment, and which also has Adventures of Middle-earth, which is this campaign. That is !ArvShop. !ArvTreon is the Patreon, which is sitting right there, 302. Again, we'd love to see that go north of that, because the number that I actually get from that is considerably lower, just because of fees and things like that. And so any support that people can give is very much appreciated. If people can give us a hand, that definitely makes a difference to the channel. And last but certainly not least, of course, that sub button right above the video window. We're sitting right now at about 47 subs at last count. So any help that people can give along those lines would be helpful. Now, scheduling note for today. We are getting started a little bit later, so I'm hoping, I will double check with the folks, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to go a little bit later to compensate, so we should still be able to get a decent amount of time in, I think. Then at 4 p.m., we have got, at 4 p.m. Eastern, we've got over on Pen and Pixels, I'll be continuing my playthrough of Pathfinder Kingmaker over on GOG, so that will continue to happen. And then this Friday, we've got Esper Genesis makes its triumphant return, which will be awesome. My space opera game sponsored by Alligator Alley Entertainment. And Saturday we continue what has been a freaking awesome campaign of Curse of Strahd so far, so that's going to be a good time as well. One last note for today is that after the session today, we will have nominations for the Patreon Fuel Chat Chosen Game of the Month. Current schedule has this, and then next week doing another AME campaign session, and then the week after that is going to be the Patreon Fuel Chat Chosen Game of the Month. So we're going to do nominations, so be thinking about what game you would like to nominate for me to play as the Patreon Fueled Chat Chosen Game of the Month, and I will be happy to take a look at it and take it on if that wins the vote. So that will happen at the end of day today. But right now, we are going to move on to our current players that we have with us. So I'm going to unmute myself so they know that we're ready to go, and then I'm going to unmute them, and then I'm going to slide over there, dun, 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 to reveal that we have at the moment 2 people, but we are going to have the others, at least one of the others, I should say, available shortly. So let me start by just mentioning the person who's not going to be here. Unfortunately, Amal cannot be here. There was a little bit of a scheduling snafu this morning, and so she is going to be going off and teaching. We have blamed the Shadow on this, and I think that's reasonable. Obviously, the Shadow works in strange and mysterious ways, and so, you know, that's... She'll come back stronger than ever, but this is that moment, you know, when Frodo and Sam are at the bottom of the mountain and they're looking up at Mount Doom, and it looks bad for our heroes. That's you know, but they did eventually climb the mountain, and then luckily have Gollum steal the ring and fall into the crack of doom. But I digress. Anyway, that's happening. So Amal will be back with us next week, and we hope she has a good teaching day today. The other person who is currently not with us is Trendane, and I'm pretty sure this is just because Trendane overslept, and that we are going, because Trend never misses anything, seriously. And so I'm sure what's going to happen is that he's going to come on board in about 15 minutes, looking upset, angry, bleary-eyed, and be like, I woke up and went, oh! I'm sure that's going to happen. So, so I expect that Trend will be with us at some point, but I didn't want to wait any longer to get ourselves started because we have 2 players that are ready to go, including one that has not been able to be with us because of various travel and movement and shifting from place to place. And we are now happy to have our good friend Will back with us. Will is back and
Oh,
arrived. And yeah, Will, how are you? The travel is
yeah, doing good.
complete for the moment,
The
anyway.
the travel is over. The journey has come to its end. The fellowship is
It's
broken.
broken. Wait, what?
No, the fellowship is very much just formed. It's the other way around. Yeah, we're good. We're in America, so we've been doing this immigration process for the past I don't know, 2 or 3 years now, and it's finally done. We got our visa in the mail a couple of weeks ago, and the next day we packed up our house and left, and got a next day flight to the States. Had like an interview at the border to make sure I was who I was, and they were like, "Have a great wedding, see you later." I was like, "Really? I could just come in?" So yeah, we've just been chilling. We're home, and so we've been seeing family, friends, everyone that we haven't seen for years, and just relaxing. So I took a couple of weeks away from obligations and doing things. But yeah, now I'm back, and I'm super excited today to find out what the hell's been happening to the party and Robar since I've been gone. I guess I should say that I will be playing Robar Staunton, uh, King of the Vale, Rider of Eagles, and a bit of a grumpy old sod, really. Yeah, he's last he heard there were some orcs coming,
Yes.
and he was upset about that. So yeah,
That is more or less yes. And then we had an interesting couple of arrival down at the orcs. There's been some confrontation with orcs as of late, as we will discuss momentarily.
excellent.
But no, it is a great pleasure to have Will back with us, and yeah, and I can't wait to hear more from Robar today. I also cannot wait to hear more from someone who has been with us regularly, and that includes today, and who has a new, although I don't see it right, I don't see her right
No.
now. And that, of course, is Terry Tunes. But Terry,
Hi.
your new arrival is not currently on screen. I
No,
see that.
no, she is sleeping right now under the couch, I'm assuming. Like sometimes she just taps out and doesn't want to see anybody. Totally unrelatable. Don't know how that feels. But yeah, I like people who have been to last week's stream, the game book
Yeah.
illustration live stream, will know that I have a cat since last Monday. No, the Monday before that, last week.
Can confirm. I saw it.
Yeah, she was here briefly during setup, but she was like trying to eat me alive, and I was like, no, you can go, bye. But yeah, she will be on camera at some point. Like if I have to wake her up, so be it. But for now, I think I'll let her rest and be before she like murders me, because that's what cats do. They murder people.
We buy them and take care of them for the privilege. Thank you for murdering
Yeah.
me.
Yes, basically. But yeah, it has been a bit stressful, as little kittens tend to be. But yeah, I think she is starting to like this place and stuff. Did already try to murder my cactus, so that's nice.
I assume the cactus fought back, as only a cactus can.
Well, I don't know how it happened. I was in the living room at some point. I heard a loud clanking noise and ran to the kitchen to see that my cactus was on the floor with earth everywhere. And yeah. Oh well. But yeah.
That's
Pets
what
are
happened.
fun. Adopt a kitten today. Don't buy one. Adopt one.
That's right. Adopt one. That's true.
Adopting animals.
And who are you playing today, Terry?
I'm playing Inge, daughter of Ida. She is a dwarf from the Erebor, and she is a wanderer and a stonemason, and she also has a pet, a trusty pony sidekick, who is not with us currently because she sent him back home. Because she was like, yeah, better not go face an entire orc army with a tiny pony.
So he's now holding the gate by himself.
He's now
basically.
holding the gate. Yeah.
He is
Whatever
the
comes
vanguard.
through that gate, you will stand your hooves.
He's the vanguard, just the lonely mountain behind him, and just like just him by himself. Just the camera
But
pans
yeah,
down.
people who are watching and we're like, I wanted to see the cat. Don't worry, the cat will be on stream at some point.
Yes.
cannot say when exactly.
You gotta keep watching.
Yes,
That's why.
you gotta keep watching, and then you will see a cute kid.
Yeah, it's like the radio giveaways where you're like, tune in at this
Right,
time
right.
between now, and we'll give you something away. So you'll get a cat if you just hang out, basically.
Well, no, you won't get her. You get to see her.
It's the same thing for them.
No!
It's the same thing.
Seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing. No, it's a great pleasure to have Terry and her cat, although we don't see that when the cat actually gets there. Thank you for the follow. Right now, thank you, Bakulam. They're like, I like the cut of your jib. You're talking about cats. I'll give you a follow. That sounds like a plan. But thank you very much, Terry, for being with us as always. And let's get underway, folks, and talk a little bit about what happened in our last session. And I should mention, I did say very quickly about the importance of the fact that Cubicle 7 is our sponsor, but I do want to say, if you haven't had a chance already, they've got a lot of good stuff coming out with Warhammer, and continuing stuff with Warhammer, and continuing stuff with Adventures of Middle-earth. They have almost now finished all the conversions of what originally was the One Ring system over to AME, and are now sort of doing this stuff in parallel development. They have a thing that I'm pretty excited about, which is a huge Moria supplement, which is going to come out, which is like, that's going to be pretty sick. And I can imagine that being, you could basically do an entire campaign out of just Moria, which would be a sort of definitionally a dungeon crawl of sorts. But so that's going to be coming out. So again, everything they put out is really, really well done and very polished and looks great. And so we are grateful to them as our sponsor. So now that I've talked about that, let's talk a little bit about what happened here. The party has spent the last couple of days riding south at top speed to try to head off an invading army of orcs. When the party ended up going east of Mirkwood to return to what was supposed to be the celebration, the 5-year celebration of the Battle of the Five Armies and the Fall of Smaug, when they got there, they saw a town that was fully in celebration. Dale was filled up with merchants and tourists and all, types, and most of the warriors of the surrounding lands for part of these, ceremonies of celebration and so forth. And the party ended up meeting several characters, including Bannock, who is apparently some kind of a merchant type who seemed happy to see them, and Harrod, this jester, who was sort of dancing around and making merry. And the reason that those are important is that at the feast that was held that evening, someone came up looking like Bannock, opened this treasure chest, and threw at everyone, instead of gold, a bunch of venomous snakes. And the snakes went around and bit people, and it turned out that the feast itself had been poisoned as well. And so the effect of all of this, while, by the way, it turned out the person that did that was not Bannock, but was a disguised Herod, who under interrogation later revealed that he had been hired by Bannock to do this. Bannock, in the meantime, had made his escape with a chest of the town's actual gold, and had left. And the party would later find a boat abandoned and a chest which had been apparently dragged off. They didn't find the chest, they found drag marks of where the chest was being taken. But the party did not have time to go follow that lead because the party had to get to the south. It was very clear, based upon word from the Ravens and elsewhere, that an army, a huge invading army of orcs, was coming from the south and was heading up towards Dale. And since Dale is currently not very well defended, since all of their warriors are poisoned and basically will be out for the count, down for the count for the next couple of weeks, it meant that they are in a perilous situation. And not, of course, just the people in Dale and Erebor itself, but all of the surrounding lands, the farmers, the people who are tilling the fields and so forth. They are all in trouble. And so the party agreed, sent by King Bard himself, to go to the south and try to head off this army before it could cross the Selduin. And over the last couple of days of travel, the party ran into some herdsmen, which they were able to warn. They ran into some other people, including this strange, mysterious creature, cloaked creature on a horse that really freaked out Amal, that really bothered the river because of the way that he or she presented themselves, and then sort of bolted off to the east. And the party ended up finding an orc raiding group, which the party was able to defeat and destroy, but not before the orcs had revealed, through listening to them, the orcs had revealed that there was the Gibbet boss had basically, they kept referring to him as this Gibbet boss, had sent word to leave the forest and meet the army. And from what the party could tell, it seems like this group of orcs was probably coming from the west, from Mirkwood, which is a little troubling because the army itself was supposed to be coming from the south. if that's true, it could indicate that there are two forces of orcs that are trying to kind of meet up with each other and then all head north, which means that there's even more orcs than they originally thought. They also discovered in the process of doing this that the army was perhaps a little bit closer than they had thought the army would be. And at the very end of our session last time, the party heard the very, very distant but clearly discernible sound of war horns blowing from the south. And so the party, which is now probably only about 5 hours fast travel if they book it down to Selduin. Now, as I hand things back over to the party, has to decide what they want to do. But they are facing a group of dead orcs on the ground. They have with them, by the way, in addition to Stone, Tawny, Inga, and Robar, and the River, they also have one NPC, if you will, one soldier, who is all that is left of the party that Bard could send. Because he sent a couple soldiers with him, but they had to send a couple soldiers off to go follow Bannock, and so that left the party with just them plus this soldier. And so the party, as I hand things back over to them, has heard these horns far in the distance to the south and are looking at some dead orcs and also dead wolves, I should mention as well, a couple of wargs also. And with that said, I'm going to hand things back over to Robar and Inga for the moment. What would you folks like to do?
So we are after the skirmish we had last time, right?
Correct. Literally just ended.
And we got everybody. It's like nobody escaped, right?
Correct. Yeah, everyone is dead. Everyone is dead and destroyed. There were not that many of them to begin with. You had, I believe it was something on the order of, there were 2 wild wolves. There was one sort of big orc, and then there were, I believe, 4 others, either 4 or 5 other sort of smaller orcs, all of which you have destroyed. And it's fairly easy visibility around here, so you're able to see pretty well that there's not a lot of, area for them to hide, essentially. Yeah, the soldier's name is Old Jim, 3 days from retirement. Yes, I don't know. I'm just
He had a wife and kids!
These kids, they don't...
But yeah, Inga goes, we might want to check which direction they came from. Maybe we can track where the others are then.
Good idea.
So you want to check that direction, I'm gonna go check that direction?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. Robar's also interested, are these guys well equipped?
I would not say that they are particularly well equipped. They are sort of kind of standard that you've seen, but this looks very much more like a party that was built for speed. Like if you had to guess, it's more like a scouting party. They kind of have lighter armor, spears and like scimitars, but they're not sort of heavily armored. We're going to fight, Urukai style. So you get the impression that they were designed for speed. And yeah, so that's the thing I would say about that. I should also mention, Robar, because you weren't here for this, Will, that you're also near basically these barrows that you've been going past, these sort of ruins and barrows, and you were actually able to use that for cover, like hiding behind stones and things like that.
Interesting. Okay, then yeah, I'll have a little scout around and see if I can find some tracks.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too, in the other direction.
All right, let me have both of you then please make perception checks for me.
24.
Wow,
oh my
good
god.
start.
I
Also
was good at
remember,
that.
get the double bonus on that because this is a wilderness.
Yeah, you're right. It's technically a 27.
Okay.
So for me it is an 8.
So Inga's like, I know there are tracks here, but they look like mine, and you're not quite
Right.
able to, don't follow it. However, Robar is quite clearly able to see that the tracks lead off to the west, and I should place you up here, basically. The tracks clearly lead off to the west, really the southwest. Again, you would have to follow it a while. You're probably a good hour and a half travel away from the Selduin, although you're getting closer to it as you head farther south. So, but your guess is that those tracks, both wolf and orcs, came from that direction exactly. And the problem with that is that if they were coming in more or less a straight line, it means that they were coming then from the southern portion of Mirkwood, which is sort of the nasty, we don't like being here, Mirkwood, essentially. Basically by it's still it's kind of just south of the mountains of Mirkwood, essentially.
Right.
And that, again, is a dangerous area. That's, if you go even a little bit further, you're heading down towards Dol Guldur and the Necromancer's Tower and all that stuff. So it's not so good.
Okay. I said to Inga, look, here.
Oh?
They came from, southern Mirkwood by the looks of things.
That's not good. That kind of ruins our plans. Unless it could be that they actually came from further southeast, and just crossed the river up here.
It's possible, I suppose.
I mean, this was obviously a scouting party of some sorts, I assume. So
Right.
it could be that they were just sent upstream and then went to cross here.
That seems possible. I don't know how clever orcs like this are.
Well, I mean, they obviously had some help
Right,
from
that's
the
true.
outside at some point, and we do not know what this Gibbet King is.
Nothing good.
Well, yeah, but
We should have kept one alive. Interrogate.
yeah, probably.
I gotta check around. Are any of you alive? Answer me
They
this.
do not respond.
Is any of that okay? But here's a question, because this is Wog Attack. Is one of them took a little tumble off the cliff? You know, is there one of them gone?
There was like that, and that person expired right at the end of the last session.
Damn. Okay.
Unfortunately, they were
Always
the
look
ones
for
who
the
basically
goggling
told
hole.
you that you're all dead. You're dead,
Yeah.
and that the Gibbet King will destroy you, and blah blah blah.
Okay, give a king. All right, that's good to know. Okay, quickly remind me of our current plan in terms of troop movements. We're gonna meet them at the crossing of Selduin.
Yeah, that was the idea, like that we go there and set a fire there. But if the
That's
orcs
right.
are coming from the southwest now, then that plan is completely pointless.
Well,
Wait,
yeah.
our last time when we overheard them, did they say anything about the crossing of Selduin? Like, I think they did, right?
They did make reference to the crossings of Selduin, but they you didn't hear a lot of what they said, but a lot of what they kept referring to was this idea of meeting. They kept talking about meeting army and like meeting a group. So that, again, it's hard to say, but it suggests that maybe they weren't with the main army and left them, that they were supposed to meet them. So it seems like, again, it's impossible to tell because you don't know what the other orc army is like, but this looks like a very standard group of orcs that you have encountered before, that tend to be sort of the mountain races, essentially, that you would see in the Misty Mountains and sometimes the mountains of Mirkwood, although you have not had much chance to be in that region of the world.
So question is, do we change our route or do we keep going to the crossings?
There's only a small group of them, and you're right. They're scouts. I don't think they're gonna bring a whole army through here, but it's possible.
What if there are two armies and like one is coming from the southeast and one is coming from Mirkwood?
That would make sense. I mean,
Like maybe they were meant to rendezvous somewhere around here or further north.
maybe we need to do some scouting of our own.
But we don't really have time of that. That's a problem.
Yeah. Okay, well, say there's two armies. One's coming from the southeast. What can we do? Because if we split our forces expecting a second attack and then it turns out there's only one, then we only have half an army facing against two of them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Dale already is preparing for an attack, no matter if we succeed or not. So
Right.
it doesn't matter if we go warn them or not. So I guess we have to take a gamble, and
I think so. I don't think we have much of a choice here.
No, not really. I would say we just stick to our plan.
All right.
I mean, dealing with half of an army is still better than dealing with a whole army, so...
Yes, and if there is a second force, then once we finish this battle, then we can head back to Dale to relieve the forces there.
Well, yes.
All right.
I mean, we are just 5 people. Don't forget that. And yes, of course, Stone,
awesome.
you too.
Yeah, we are us.
Inga goes into Pet Stone after he probably looked at her like, we are 6 people. So
we can take him.
we can take an entire army. So your new-found kingliness is totally not growing to your head, isn't it? Going to your head.
Don't remind me.
Uh-huh. Your Highness, shall we go then?
Yeah.
All right, so you folks are heading back off to the, and thank you for doing that, Aradinel. Only about 25 minutes, Coven. We had some changes, so okay. So you folks sort of saddle up then and head south again, and I'm assuming, although correct me if I'm wrong, because this was relatively, earlier in the day, I would say. So I'm assuming you're going to kind of book it, as much as okay. Sort of heading to the southeast. The rest.
Oh wait! Before we leave, we would like to search the corpses if we find anything worth.
Oh, any evil notes?
Any
Yes.
evil notes?
Any Skyrim notes lying around?
So when you search them, you find on most of them you find
A copy of the lusty Argonian mate.
Yes, exactly. that definitely exists
These
on all
evil
of them.
goblins.
No, you see, you end up finding first of all some their weapons that they were carrying. So the most of them were carrying spears and these scimitars. One of them had a kind of a rough short bow with a quiver of arrows, of rough fletched arrows on his back. Far inferior to your own, usage.
Of course.
You also found several bits of indeterminate dried meat. You're not sure what the meat is from, but it looks like some kind of...
Don't want to find out.
Some kind of turkey, yeah.
Tastes good.
As well. And then the only other thing that you note, as I mentioned, is that their sort of armor and weaponry and everything else seems sort of like kind of lightly armored. And the thing that you note is that these orcs seem to be wearing different kinds of armor. That is to say that everything's kind of mismatched. Like they're not wearing a particular uniform.
Right.
Like this is all the same kind of, it all seems to be kind of, mishmash, ad hoc type of gathered stuff, which is traditionally what you would expect as you run into orcs, but it does not suggest a kind of military group. You wonder if these people actually were, if these orcs were like together as a unit, or if they just sort of ran into each other. But it definitely does not seem like a organized crew of everyone with the same crest.
That's good.
Well, maybe they were like completely unrelated to the army then.
They did make what they were referring to.
No.
meaning
Inge
this
is
army,
saying that
Oh,
to
I see.
the party.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Possible, but it would be strange. Just a band of orcs happening to be in this area the day of the battle.
Well, I mean, they kind of are known to go on small raids in these
I
lands.
suppose perhaps they were just encouraged by the army, and while not actually a part of it, decided to try and take advantage of easy pickings. That sounds like goblins to me.
Oh well. Guess all we can do is press onward, so let's do that.
Agreed.
Okay, so when you folks set off to the south, you discover that the rest of the trip is rather uneventful, except that as you get sort of closer and closer to the river, you can, and to Selduin, your ultimate destination, you can see more of these flocks, and I don't think you were here for this, Will. These flocks of crows showed up. A couple of times actually, sort of circling around, and at one point this set of crows basically flew right overhead all of you and then came down and then kind of broke off in all directions, which is not the way that crows normally work. And so the assumption is that you were dealing with, spying groups or whatever. That there are evil crows from Dunland and others that will serve will serve sort of evil forces and act as their eyes and ears. And you see more of those groups. None of them come over towards you, but you see more of them kind of gathering at various places in the south. It looks like from where you are, even south of the river possibly, but you definitely see them kind of high in the sky and sort of circling around. So there's more of them in this way. So as you get close to the Seldoin itself, we're going to have the end here of a journey that you've been making. So I want to talk about this arrival phase here. The guide for this, I believe, we had Robar as the scout, we had Inga as the guide because of her knowledge of this lands and so forth. And so what I'm going to ask for here is, this is -1, blah, 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 and the terrain of the journey, +1. Okay, so I am going to ask you to roll a d8 for me to determine what the arrival was going to be. It's going to be a neutral roll, -1 for some of the terrain you went over, but +1 because of some of the actions that were taken during it and meetings that you had of various kinds. So neutral, essentially, is what we're looking at.
Okay.
A6. All right.
Wait, I'm gonna check if like I get
anything for the lands, etc.
No. No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay. So the many leagues that you've traveled have filled you with a sense of clear purpose regarding your goals, dark though the path ahead may be. And as a result, the next embarkation roll will receive +1. So the next time that you go on a journey, you'll get +1 to that roll.
Nice.
And if someone could mark that down, I will also mark it down. +1
to get my notes. I was tidying up earlier, so nothing is where needed. Obviously.
Next journey. Okay. Alrighty. So you see that. You also see a new map. Let me provide that to you. Oh, actually, wait. Let me move you all.
Is that a new map I see?
You see before you. Okay, wait.
Dear dwarf, I see.
Let's move this like that. Lovely. All right. So let me move you all over to this new map. I apologize in advance for the numbers. Please ignore those. Pay no attention to the thing behind the curtain.
Right.
Okay. Right. So,
I'll be back in a few minutes. I need to go to the bathroom.
Okay. All right. So I will start with you then, Robar. As you approach the crossings of Seldoin, even from a distance, you can make out the narrow stone bridge which is arching across the river. And somewhat unexpectedly, perhaps, you also see a town which is sitting on its northern bank, and there are houses clustered around a fortified toll gate that is built at the end of the bridge. It seems apparently quite peaceful at the moment. You don't see or hear any sounds of attack or alarm or anything like that. Just the crows in the distance, but nothing else. And the sound of the war horns that you originally heard have since ceased, so you no longer hear the war horns that are happening. Also, I should mention that it is probably, I don't know if you've ever been here, Robar, but certainly not for a considerable period of time you have not.
Yeah.
And so this area and this particular thing is unfamiliar to you. But obviously many towns obviously take care of their own kind of fortifications and things like that. So you can see this sort of toll gate that's on the end. You do know that there has been often a village there are many villages and towns along the river running, and that Seldoin is the elven name for river, so you know about that as well.
Okay.
But other than that, there's not a whole lot else that you know, other than the fact that there is this bridge there. The bridge is made of white stone, you can see, and it seems to be kept in pretty good repair. It's wide enough that 2 riders could go abreast or a single cart, and technically 3 warriors on foot could try to hold that bridge, technically.
Okay.
The river running here, which is area number 6, is fast flowing, and seems to be very fast flowing here, so it's not easily
I begin to
fordable.
sweat.
Yeah, I was going to say, fortunately you got a bridge for you. You're all set. You're all good.
Yeah. What is this invention? This piece of land over the water.
Exactly. So you folks are here, and actually, let me bring all of you onto. Let me bring all of you onto this map. River, stone.
So I found somebody while I was gone. Hi, everybody.
Hey, it's the kitty
Patience
cat.
has been rewarded.
Yes.
Hello, Lorelai.
Her name is Lorelai, and she is very cute.
Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So welcome, Lorelai, and
Oh, she's not in a cuddly mood.
yeah, well, she's actually holding the
See
gate.
her butthole. It's very.
Yeah, she's holding the gate. You can see right now. So
Right.
basically, she's the monster you see at the end of the toll gate. So that's the basic. All right, I'm just making sure I get everybody sized properly. More or less, that's right, I think.
I'll take this opportunity as well to run to the bathroom.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so I'll explain what I just explained to Will. So you see, Inga, here, this the town. You're probably a little bit, Lorelei, Cacti Slayer, exactly. You're probably a little more familiar with this area than Robar would be, although this is farther south than technically your knowledge extends. But you have heard of towns that are along the river running, and Selduin you have heard of before, although you don't know much about it, because I don't know whether you ever would have come down this far south, but at the very least you would know about it as this town of Selduin, that it's been here for a very long time. You're a little bit surprised, actually, that it's as in good repair as it is here. I mean, the bridge itself, as I mentioned, is made of white stone, and it looks pretty... in pretty good shape. I mean, obviously it's not dwarven manufacture, but it's pretty good work for, human work. And so it seems like someone is sort of aware of the importance of protection, protecting the town against a possible attack. Although there's nothing in particular. You don't see any guards that are standing. There's no massed troops. You don't hear or see any kind of attacks or fighting going on. You just hear the sound of, or rather you just see the crows kind of circling in the distance. The river here, right here, is very fast flowing, the river running. It would not be easy to ford. It might be possible, but it wouldn't be easy, and while you were doing it, you'd be well subject to attack from the opposite bank. So that, could be a concern. But the bridge itself, which looks to be in fairly good shape, these are 10-foot squares, and so the bridge is about 20 feet wide, and there is this toll bridge at the very end of it, or toll gate, I should say, at the end of it, and there's this huge iron portcullis that is on this side of the river, on the opposite side from where you are.
Wait, so is the map upside down, or what's happening?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I guess that would be the case.
Because
actually.
we came from the north.
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, it is the northern bank. Okay, I put you in the wrong spot. My bad.
Aha.
I mean, put you up here. That's my fault.
Good thing that I said it.
Yeah, that's true, because you're coming from the north. Well, because I've been dealing with maps in my other campaigns that are not north, which is really annoying. Like, up is something else. I'm like, no, up is north. Stop reinventing the wheel. Okay, so let me fix that. Yeah, thank you. That makes considerably more sense. Okay, so... yeah, so as you enter the town... this is being difficult. There we go. All right,
Like,
so...
I'm assuming we're at the very top of the bridge
yes,
right
I'll put
now.
you there in a second.
Map, I mean.
I'll put you there in a second, as soon as I reveal the rest of this. There we go. Okay. All right, that's good for now. Hey, what's up, Bill Marinan? Quoth the Raven, get your butt off my bridge. Yes, pretty much. Okay, let me move you folks up here. Okay, there we go. Okay, and so you just see this as you're riding into town. So you can see that iron portcullis that I mentioned, but you just see it on the other, this side, basically. So you see it up here. But the same thing, there's a big iron portcullis there, and you can see there are a few buildings on the other side of the river leading to the south. And as you are approaching this area, you can see that there are some of these houses. There's what looks like a large stone-walled building right down here. Let me move my dice roller for people in chat. We'll shift that like that. There we go. Yeah. So you can see there's like a large stone-walled building over here. There is a larger house, a wooden house here. And you can see a few people kind of moving about here and there. But as you ride up, you can actually see one man is being led out from this home to meet you. And he's got a cane that he kind of heavily leans on. And he's being led by two young maidens, two young girls, maybe 11 or 12 years old, each of them. And they're sort of leading him by either hand as he kind of walks forward. And he comes and sort of sees you and stops in front of you. And then he says, "You've come to Selduin. What do you want?"
Good question. What do we want to get?
Well, we've been sent. First of all, my name is Inge, daughter of Ida, at your service. And these are my traveling companions, Robust on blah, 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 blah. Just
Right, go through the
say
list.
all of those.
We need business cards.
Business cards, yeah, or an announcer.
Adventurers of the Wilderland.
Should hire a bard to just like announce us, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we've been sent from Dale because we are expecting an orc army to march on your beautiful little town here. So you don't happen to know anything about that, do you?
And he sort of
Strong pitch.
so he pauses and sort of looks at you, sort of half squinting, leaning. You can see that although he's leaning on the cane that he has, the cane itself is actually sort of nicely. It's a nice cane, basically made out of this strong wood that seems to have been treated somehow. Seems to be polished, and you can see that even the clothing that he's wearing is fairly decent quality, you would say. And he says, "I am Eric, son of Erland. I am the master of this town, as was my father and his grandfather Egil before that. This has been in my family for many generations.
Congratulations.
I do not know of this orc army, but you say you did mention Bard, right?"
Yeah, we said
Right,
Dale.
He said, "I have heard of the crowding of King Bard, and I welcome it with no great amount of happiness. The influence of Dale will eventually make Selduin look north for its care, instead of here in the town where it belongs, and thus these people will be left to fend for themselves when attacks do come. That gate there," and he sort of jerks his head over his shoulder towards the big, I didn't mention this, Will, but the big iron portcullis is the actual
sweet.
toll gate. And I put you on the wrong side, as Terry helpfully pointed out. You're on the north side, so the bridge is over here. But still.
Oh, so
yeah,
this
that
guy's won the fray. I got it.
Yeah, so anyway, so he said, "My kin built that gate some time ago, and it is we who have maintained it, our sweat and blood. Where was Dale and the men of Bard? Where were the Bardings when we needed them a decade ago? No, we hold no allegiance in particular to King Bard, and I have heard in my winters many comings and goings of attacks and armies, and always have they broken like rain upon the strong walls that we have established here. If you come from Bard, you do not come with friendship for us." And he kind of like looks at you sort of somewhat defiantly. And the two sort of maidens, the two girls that are holding his arms, sort of glance at each other but don't say anything.
Good man. I understand your fears and your plight. Truly, Dale has done you a disservice by not treating you better. But I, too, rule over people, I think. And King Bard has been nothing but welcoming to us in this hour. Although, similarly to you in the past, he has scorned us. His promises now are that if we stand with him in this attack, he will help my people. And I have no doubt, as he is a man of honor, he will help yours as well. We need your assistance in this time. And though it may be the case that he has not done you this friendship or kindness in the past, is it not for us to rise above those who haven't treated us well? Right?
He kind of like... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Robot just sort of looks around like, that was right. That was good, right?
So he kind of looks at you and he says, "Perhaps you are a king of some land I am not familiar with, and perhaps you are comfortable being a vassal and servant, not to say slave of Dale, but I am not willing to be one. If whoever leads this army you say is coming towards us is willing to pay the toll, why should I deny them the use of the bridge? I have taken no sides in whatever conflict engages those to the north."
Alliance is not vassalhood. Friendship is not slavery. Come, you must see that orcs and goblins and the filth from Mirkwood are worth withstanding. You cannot let such creatures into your lands to run amok. How long will it be till they come for you if Dale falls? If Dale is gone and Bard and his forces have fallen, how long will it be till the creatures of Shadow turn their gaze to you, my lord?
And he kind of nods and he says, "I am no fool." Oh, you've announced that you're Robar, so he says, "I am no fool, Robar Staunton. If you say that orcs are coming, they probably are, and I can see the crows for myself. And it is true that if the Bard's army were to fall, that Selduin may follow. But if you offer me a choice between seeing Selduin fall after Dale and Selduin fall first, then it is my job as master to pick the option that preserves the town for as long as possible. We have only a few warriors here, no more than a handful, not nearly enough to hold back a full invading army if they so choose."
3 men can hold that bridge there. That portcullis is strong. I can see that it was built with courage and the strength of the men of Selduin. With you may not have many warriors, but me and my companions here are more than a match for any number of orcs in such a defensive location.
So he kind of squints and kind of looks you up and down as if kind of, scanning you. And at this point, you notice that other of the people have begun to sort of gather. So you see people kind of coming together, maybe 20, 25 people, let's say. You see also there's a guard standing at the house, basically at this house from which he originally came, kind of looking at you. Then he says, "I mean no disrespect, Robar. You look to have grim and doughty companions, and indeed you seem to have some weathered-stained boots and things that suggest you have already been on the road. But the addition of 4 or 5 more will do nothing for this army you say must override us. Our only chance is to allow them through and hope that the hammer will fall not here, but farther north in Dale.
You may be, with the greatest respect, sire, you are old and soon will die anyway, but I see amongst your number...
We failed this.
Soon
Great.
the winters will take you anyway, but I see amongst your number perhaps your daughters, grandchildren, and young folk who have many summers and winters to pass. And if you let these orcs and goblins, this filth through, those winters will be cut short. If you let me and my companions stand here and fight them, then they may just have a chance of growing as old and as wise as you, sire.
I have no intention, Robar Staunton, of dropping dead within the next winter to satisfy your feelings of how long age should be before giving way to youth. Perhaps you, young man, of course you have, you're probably as old as this guy, but...
Yeah, that's I'm about to come back at him.
Perhaps you, young man, have not seen these winters, but I have. And I can tell you that my nieces here, my granddaughters here, and he sort of looks at each of them, and they kind of look up at him. My granddaughters have lived as long as they have, 12 winters on this world, because of my careful judgment. And that involves not running around like some fool chicken with its head cut off anytime someone says that an attack is imminent. I have managed to stay the course so far.
I'm not asking you to run, sire. You might be surprised to hear that I may be as old as ye.
Kind of looks at, kind of taken aback.
I am one of the Dunedain. Perhaps you've heard of my people.
And he kind of narrows his eyes and he says, Aye, the Dunedain. I have indeed heard of your folk before, wandering around the borders of good people's lands, whispering dangers and sorrows and fears, and then disappearing before anything can be done to support or help them. If you come, then I name you Stormcrow, as all Dunedain have been.
I turned to Inga. Well, he's got me there.
And you make an insight check for me, actually, Robar. And I guess Inga, you can do this too because you're looking right at them.
Oh, okay.
I see nothing in his craggy old.
You're just like, how dare this guy call me a Stormcrow? Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's my least favorite name.
Insight, yes.
Yes, insight.
Oof.
You're just
I see even less.
You're just like, wow, this guy is old. Like, you're just like, this guy is definitely old. Come back in 3 days to use his skull for a urinal. Yeah, exactly. You're all gonna die. Okay. So he, anyway, you can see that sort of the townspeople now are kind of murmuring to each other. You can't tell. It's hard to say as what. They're all sort of murmuring at each other and then kind of looking at you. These people, just from what you can get a sense of, just the people that are around him, the insight check was for something else, but you can tell that these people around him, they wear sort of warm, sturdy clothing. They seem to be more than, they probably are somewhat farmers and sort of that sort of thing, but there's more than that here. They seem to stand taller than the kind of normal, everyday, we're just a herdsman, so please don't attack us, Lord, type of thing. There's a kind of pride in their step, and you see it even reflected in Eric, the master of the town. It's possible that these are descendants of Northmen who settled this some long time ago. And so, although they very clearly do not want to be known as Bardings, you can kind of see an echo of Bard's demeanor in the way that they stand around and are looking. And they're sort of like not whispering to each other like, oh God, we're all going to die, but are sort of like, what should we do? Seems to be the kind of conversation that's happening.
But yeah, Inge then chimes in. With all due respect, my lord, as I look at your people, I see many of them probably work these lands here very hard all day, all year. And let me tell you something about orcs. Where they treat, grass stops growing. If you decide to let an orc army through, they will destroy the fields, steal your livestock, and you will all starve next winter. There is nothing to be gained from cooperating with these fell creatures.
And he sort of thinks for a moment, and then kind of says, "What would you have me do? If this army is on its way, then the gate will either save us, or we will find it overrun and our town destroyed. I am trying to preserve my town as best I may."
Well, that is very understandable, but for starters, you could start cooperating with us. We need to assess the situation, see what we can do, and see where this orc army is and how far away they are. And then we can make further decisions. But either way, your people should start to prepare for the worst.
So he sort of pauses a little bit and thinks a bit about this, and considers. You can see kind of working through things in his mind, and then he says, "I am curious. If I came to one of your places, O dwarf," and he looks at you, Inga. "If I came to Erebor itself, or perhaps some of your kin in the Iron Hills, and I asked them to free their gates, to hold their gates, to hold against an implacable and impossible enemy, and if I asked for simply my good word as proof, what would you and your people have said to one such as I, coming as a stranger from somewhere in the distance? How would your people react if the shoe were on your foot instead of mine?"
I honestly don't know what would happen, but the point is that if this orc army is here, you will lose, whether or not you cooperate with us. You can cooperate with us, and there is a chance of people here getting alive out of this. We are not telling you to take a certain action, whether or not to hold the gate or open it. We need to first find out what the situation exactly is, and then see what we can do. What do you have to lose by just hearing us out and seeing and assessing the situation with us?
So he kind of thinks about this, and then he hobbles forward, supported by his granddaughters, and comes up right close to. I'm going to put you two in front. Comes forward and sort of hobbles right up next to Robar and Inga, and looks at you and says, "Can you then guarantee that there is some chance, some way that this army could somehow be defeated? Would you personally vouch for the chance that this army would fall?" He looks skeptical.
There's always a chance. If there wouldn't be a chance, we wouldn't be here.
There is always hope, sire. And me and my companions have defeated countless such vermin in the past. We have stood against hundreds, led battles before, and won against Vigland, the bandit king, self-proclaimed. I myself cut off his own head. We have fought against creatures of darkness.
We infiltrated the Dwemer Horn and saved human slaves from there.
And so he hears you going through this litany, and the people behind him are kind of whispering to each other, and you see a few people nodding and stuff. And he sort of holds up a hand, and the whispering is like immediately ceases. And he says, "You will forgive me, but I have heard empty boasts before. How can I know that you tell the truth in this case, and are not simply trying to infiltrate us and have our town destroyed in the end?"
What would we gain from getting your town destroyed?
And he shrugs and he says, "More time for your armies to sweep south. Perhaps you tell me of an oncoming army, and your army is on its way, and my town will be lost in the crash between them.
What?
That's yeah. All due respect, sire. That's yeah. In times like this, I understand such paranoia and mistrust. But also in times like these, sometimes all one has to go on is a man's word. You may not trust my people. You may not trust the dwarves. But our word is what we have. And if you would have me swear an oath that I will stand and, if necessary, die on the Selduin Bridge defending the people of Selduin. And I will swear it in a heartbeat.
And I will do the same if you ask it of me.
All right. I'm going to ask you then, first of all, I just want to note again that the people behind him, and now more of them have gathered. There's probably a good 40 or so now that are all sort of gathered listening to this conversation. And so now you can see there's a lot of sort of whispering and talking, and you can see that there is definitely some, there's not kind of straight out argument, loud argument, but there's definitely some clear disagreement, people kind of shaking their heads and then others nodding and sort of gesticulating quietly. And you get the impression that the town's people themselves are sort of split on this idea. But in any case, the master still stands in front of you. I'm going to ask one of you to make a charisma check. And specifically what I'm looking for here is intimidation, because you're not intimidating him, but you get the impression that he resents sort of empty boasts. And whether you can convince him that this is not an empty boast, but no, for reals, that's another question. I do wish to remind everyone in chat, by the way, that inspirations have been reset, and so unless you use some inspirations, which a couple of you did for Curse of Strahd, there are still a number of these that would be left over. So if you wish to inspire either of these players, you can do that. And either one of you, by the way, since both of you have been chatting, either one of you can make this,
I have nothing in charisma, so you might.
Me neither.
Oh,
it's like
no.
we are both the worst for this. Oh my god, where is River? We need her.
Yeah.
We need our bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do have still some inspiration from last time, so unless it also resets.
No, that resets. So you do not currently. Missing 2 people hurts. Yeah, I know. Well. We keep expecting Tren should be here pretty soon. I hope hope he's okay. Anyway.
Yeah, he's alright.
But anyway, yes,
Maybe
failure
it's
can
a
cause
power
the best
outage
trauma.
or something.
I'm sorry, say again.
Maybe it's a power outage or something.
Yeah, I've got a storm coming in.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I don't know, but so anyway.
I guess I'll roll it.
Okay.
Yeah. Can somebody please inspire Robar?
Anyone wish to
Please,
inspire
we need it.
Robar
If
to
not,
greater heights?
we'll just have to take him on outside the bridge. We'll give him
This is
a
gonna be like the conclusion of Game of Thrones, right? Let's go outside our fortress.
right.
Let's fight them outside. That's smart. Oh, man.
Oh man.
Just roll a
When he
natural
was-
20 easy.
When he was like, "Where was Dale when the Westfolds fell?" Where was Dale?
Nonstop has inspired Robar. Nonstop is always drawn in this. Thank you, Nonstop.
Alrighty,
Stop
let's.
our always MVP.
He is always the MVP.
All right, 11. Ooh.
Well, it's better than okay. So he kind of shakes his head, and he says, he sort of thinks about it, and considers it, and he sort of shakes his head, and then he says, "No, this is not for us, I think, to take time and place in. You may do as you wish, my lords. We will not hinder you to cross this bridge, but we will not ourselves hold it there against the town's will. If you choose to make these decisions, you may do as you will, but my people will neither help you nor hinder you, and when time comes, we will send out envoys as need be to those who would cross the bridge. This, I think, is the most wise course of action. That said, you are welcome to be held here hospitably. I phrased that wrong. You are welcome not be held here against your will. You are welcome to pass time here as need be. We have an inn which you may rest yourselves with, but other than that, my town can help you not here. And he turns around and kind of hobbles away with his... And a couple times the granddaughters kind of look over their shoulders as you, and you can see that the people sort of murmuring to each other start to disperse.
As they're about to disperse, Robar will call out, "Then I call upon you, good people of Selduin, if there are any fighting men and women with bravery in their heart, who scorn cowardice as we do, to join us. We'll be at the inn. Sounds good in there and warm. We'll get you a drink." And yeah, thanks all around, except from him. All right, we'll be here all day.
So they kind of a couple of them nod, kind of semi-confused, and sort of drift away a little bit, still murmuring to each other.
That felt like an 11 on intimidation.
Yeah,
Inga afterwards steps up to Robar and just says to him, "I hope if you ever get married that you find somebody who's a bit better with words than you are, because your kingdom is doomed otherwise."
Yeah. Well.
And he now enters the house. The guard still waits outside. There are still a few people milling about. Most of them seem to be going back there. The inn that he pointed out, which is, you assume, this stone-walled one that's right down here. And you could certainly check, basically, fortifications and all that stuff. I mean, you could go to the inn, right, and you could also check the area around here if you wished.
How long have we been on the road now? Since the last time we had a rest.
It was last night, so probably 8 hours.
Okay.
Would be your guess.
Then.
And it's about.
Okay, then.
It's basically about seven. It's been about 6 to 7 days travel down to Selduin, by the way, in case you're curious.
In that case, Inga doesn't want to take a break. Instead, she says, "Well, I think time is of the essence, so I will head straight to the gate and see if I can make out anything from up there."
Okay, I'll head to the inn and see if I can't rouse a sword arm or two to join us.
Okay. So let's have Inga down by the gate, I guess, and Robar over by the inn. And then do you want Tawny and the River and Stone with you?
And the River
Robar,
come with me?
Yes, please, the River, please go with Robar.
All right. So
I beg the River to join me.
I will start with you, Inga, and then I'm going to move back over to Robar. So
Tawny should come with me because I think he's probably pretty good at
fortifying.
No, that's not what I mean. Reading the environment, kind of, because he's like a naturey dude.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, that's fair enough. Let's see. So when you get down to the toll house, the sort of this toll gate thing that you see, it is a 2-story fortification. And there is this great kind of iron portcullis that you can see. The upper level seems to have the wheels for raising and lowering it. And you can see from down here that there are a number of arrow slits and murder holes to attack those who would threaten the bridge. And there's a narrow ladder that leads up to the roof of the building. The portcullis, you see a couple of guards standing near it, seems to be well maintained. However, there are iron gates behind it that are rusted open, it looks like to you. So basically there's the big portcullis, the big, gate in front, but there's also 2 big iron doors, and those things are currently open, and they don't look like they've been closed for a while. And the...
So people can pass through, but no cards or anything?
People would not be able to pass through that portcullis. It's pretty small.
No, I mean through the iron gates.
No, still. The iron gate is not... I mean, I guess if they were children, but I mean, warriors would not be able to get through it. The gates, the bars are fairly close together. So yeah.
Oh, you said they were open.
No. There's 2 sides. There's 2 parts. The gate, there's the
Yeah.
portcullis, right? But then
Yeah.
there's two closing big iron doors behind the gate. So it's gate plus doors. And the doors are open, the gate is not.
Oh, okay. But the gates are rusted.
Rusted open, and they're sort of they're open to the inside of the town, so open towards you, and they are rusted open apparently, because you can see rust even on these great hinges, and it sure doesn't look as if you don't see any marks on the ground as if they've been moved back recently. So
By the way, also I would like to have that soldier dude with us who was traveling with us.
yes, and the
Yeah,
soldier is happy to go with you. Yep.
Because 6 eyes see more than 2, so.
Yes.
But yeah, is there like any guard in front of the?
There are two of them.
Okay, then we walk up to them and Inga goes, "Greetings, Inga, daughter of Ida, at your service. We've been sent up from Dale to investigate the possibility of an upcoming orc army. We have already spoken to Eric about this. He did ensure us that we are welcome to have a look around. Is it all right if we go climb up that tower to have a better look on the other side of the river?"
And they sort of, the two guards look at each other, and then the one says, "Aye, you can go up there if you wish, but be careful, the ladder is none too strong, and once you get up there, I'm not sure what you're going to see that'll be of use to you. There's just the river and the land beyond it."
That's what I was hoping to see, so thanks for the warning about the ladder. And then she goes on and it's like, yeah, maybe we should like not all at once climb this ladder. So Inga goes
Both
first.
of you together smash. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Hello, Ant. All right,
Also,
so...
she like assesses the ladder. It's like, does it look like it will hold Tawny?
It probably would. It
Give it
does
some
look
ballast.
Like, it does look like it's seen better days. You can see like the rails themselves are kind of worn. So you probably would.
Okay. Good. Then we climb.
Okay. You're able, and I assume Tawny's going to try to go up behind you after you successfully
Yep.
pass up. Sorry, just 1 second here. Okay. All right. So you go up the ladder, and on the other side, you can actually see some more of the bridge below. So you can see that the bridge is, again, as I described before, Inga, made of white stone. You can see that it's kept in pretty good repair. You can see that it's about 20 feet wide. I mentioned that stuff before. There are a few buildings on the other side of it, but most of the town is on this side. If you look over to your left as you're looking south, so if you're looking east basically, you can see that there are some docks here, and a few boats are currently tied up next to the docks. And then the river itself is definitely flowing pretty fast in this area. And farther to the south, you can see that the area for a while goes you can see as we go far to the south, you can see that there are kind of rolling hills beyond it, although not very, like the rest of the area leading down to this, they're not very tall hills. So you just see those crows in the distance, but you don't yet hear anything else in particular. But you do see that there's like a level here. Once you get up to that second level, there is a sort of spot where you can almost take a step down into this area that leads to these murder holes and the arrow slits and all that stuff at the front of the gate, at the southern side of the gate. And so it looks like you could probably get access to anything on the bridge basically from the towers. So you could basically get to anywhere from the towers. And the bridge itself is about almost 100 feet long.
Okay, in that case, I would like that Tawny keeps an eye on those crows in the distance to like make out if like different swarms of crows tend to gather in the same spot or something.
Ah, okay.
Like as maybe if they do that, then we have a clue where the army could be.
Would one of you mind making a perception check for me, please, for him?
I will do that. I think Will has his. No, wait, he doesn't. Does anybody of us have access to his?
20s? No, I don't.
All right.
No, I
I
don't
got
either.
Rivers.
Let me.
Then give me 20.
All right. Let me give access to. Okay, and.
Like, basically, the idea is
Got
that
it.
he just keeps standing there and keeps an eye on that while Inge does other stuff.
Okay. You now have. You should be able to get access
Yes.
to him now.
What was that?
Perception.
Perception. Ooh, you get a nice bonus on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's Tony, by the way. Not
Okay.
Inge.
So that was a
So
that was a 12.
Yeah.
Okay. So you definitely.
Oh, he does have inspiration, though.
Well, I mean that's technically it's it should have been. Although inspiration, if that's from last month, then that resets.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's got to be because we haven't done anything
Okay.
as of yet. So he's from where you are, he can definitely see groups of these crows. It does look like there are several groups of crows that kind of fly towards each other, but then they sort of break apart again and separate. So it's hard to get a sense as to whether they're focusing on any one particular point. There are, however, more groups of them now. You can see maybe 5 or 6 of them to the south.
Okay.
He can see, I should say.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Then Inge goes have a closer look at the defenses here,
Okay.
as you said she could.
Yes, and I will talk about that briefly, and then I will come back to Robar. So when you go down to the southern side of this, you and Tani, you can see that along the bank there are sort of several what look like almost like kind of fortifications is a little bit too strong for it, but basically like these stone walls that are a couple of feet high that line most of the bank. A lot of them are crumbled in places and so forth, but technically in the places where they are, you could try to kind of duck behind them and then sort of shoot over the river now, or shoot at somebody who's on the bridge. Now again, shooting over the river, we're talking about that's at least 120 feet from bank to bank. So that would be quite a shot to get to them from that side, but of course that also applies the other direction of them shooting back at you. Once they get onto the bridge, obviously they make it sort of closer. These are not very tall though. I mean, they're only maybe a couple of feet, so it's not like you could stand confidently behind them as an archer. Like you'd have to be basically on your knees, and you wonder if this even was designed for town defense, or if it was maybe a long time ago and has since fallen into disrepair. So unlike the portcullis, which looks like someone's been trying to keep it up, the gates, which are rusted open, this also looks like they haven't done a lot here. And other than that, the town doesn't seem to have a lot of fortifications to speak of.
So, but the water definitely looks like swimming through it would be nigh impossible, right?
I wouldn't say impossible, but difficult. It's flowing very fast.
So an army crossing here without a bridge or boats would be basically...
Yeah, very difficult. They'd be leaving themselves accessible. Basically, they'd leave themselves open to attack from the town, from the walls, from the banks. Also, you can even feel from hearing as you kind of reach over, the river here is very cold, freezing cold. And so there's also the fact that you wonder if it wouldn't just create, I mean, maybe not hypothermia, but it would be, it'd be rough to swim through. It might actually cause even some damage.
Okay, then, yeah, like I said, it's Robar's turn.
So I will jump over to Robar. Robar, inside this beautiful inn, which I completely have ready. I need to get my. There we go. That's a little better. I need to get my inn music going here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get rid of that, and let's see what we got for this. Give me. Oh, I haven't had any of it. Yo, that's no good. Wait, I gotta. This is important. This is very critical. I gotta make sure that I have the right in. Okay. Let's see. All right. Give me 1 sec.
More what is.
There we go. Smashing pumpkins. There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right. Add game. And we'll put that into this. Lovely. Nope. There we go. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we got some. Now I got the right feel for it. Okay. So when you go inside this inn, which is known as the Inn at the Crossings, you can actually see that there's actually a flowing river on this wooden sign above it. So when you enter, one thing you note as you walk in, Robar, is that this thing is like strong stone walls and so forth, and you wonder a little bit about like this. It seems like a little bit more fortified than most inns usually would be.
Okay.
And so you sort of take that for what it is. And when you walk into the inn, you can see that there are some people, a few people that are sitting at tables. There is a barkeeper who is a woman standing behind the bar, kind of older woman, maybe in her... Not old, maybe in her 50s, something like that, with grayish hair, who is got this, wearing an apron and is currently drying mugs as you walk in. And she sees you and kind of nods once in your direction, and then sort of gestures towards an open table, as if to say, like, you could sit there if you want.
I go grab a seat. That's like somewhere where I'm visible, which isn't the usual kind of seat that Robot takes. He usually goes all strider and tries to lurk in a corner, but this time he wants to be easily approached by people.
Okay. And so you do this, and the barkeep brings over a mug and sort of drops it in front of you and says, "I'll be right back, master," and then turns around because she's got to attend to somebody else. And as you're sitting there, you notice the door to the inn opens, and one of the young girls that was escorting Eric comes in and is sort of looking around a little bit nervously, and then sees you. And a couple of the people in the tavern sort of look up and see her and kind of like do a double take, like, what are you doing in the inn? And she sees you and then comes quickly over to your table. And then she says, I'm sorry to disturb you. My name is Idis. May I sit with you for a moment?
Please, take a seat, Idis.
And so she sits down, and she kind of looks around nervously, and she says, I cannot be gone for long. My grandfather will know that I'm missing. I wanted to know. Is what you said true? Is there an army coming? An army of orcs?
There is, Idis.
And she kind of... Grandfather says that there are always people screaming of danger and asking us to do things even if we choose not to. And that it's time we do things for ourselves, but... I don't know, I remember seeing orcs once attack someone on the southern side of the river. It was awful what they did to them. I wouldn't want that to happen to everyone else. She kind of casts her eyes down to the table.
That's the right way to be thinking about things, Idis. I fear that your grandfather's wisdom has been clouded by mistrust of his neighbors and jealousy of Dale. In truth, I've met King Bard. He seems like an honorable man who, if your grandfather wasn't so proud as to not being able to ask for help, would provide it if you would only ask.
And she sort of kind of thinks about that and nods, and then says, the problem is that my grandfather, as you say, is proud, and His line has been the master here for as long as anyone can remember. Generations. I think that my grandfather may also be afraid that the people here, that they may eventually swear allegiance to Bard instead of him. I don't think it's true. My family has much respect among our people, but I think he worries that he is growing older, you see. He's proud, but his rule is failing. And he does not want to simply fade into the darkness. He has kept us safe for many long years, but convincing him that what he wants may not be what the town needs, that is difficult.
You say he's proud. I'm wondering if there might be a way to make him see reason, perhaps to make it think it was his idea. I don't know. You know him better than I. Is there something that could convince him? I tried my best with some flattery. That didn't seem to get me very far.
She nods and she says, "Yes, my father generally does not welcome flattery, or any sense that people are being dishonest or disingenuous with him. There is, well, my father, you see, Annis, he is the one whose job it is to take over when my grandfather has passed on. My father is away, along with several others from the town. They should be coming back soon, but he is not likely to move against my grandfather. Certainly he would not do anything to harm him. He has great respect for him, and he is cautious too. But at the very least he is brave, and if he took some warriors with him, perhaps there might be something he could do. There is also..." And he kind of lowers his voice. She lowers her voice, and she says, "If you want, I know some of the people in town that I could send them to you. I mean, in secret. It wouldn't be official. My grandfather could not find out, but if you wish, you could perhaps train them, or I don't know how much time is left, but at least position them, gather them, as long as my grandfather does not find out."
If your grandfather did find out, what do you think he'd do?
And she shakes her head and looks nervous, and she says, "First, he would demand that it be stopped." Thank you, Coven. "First, he would demand that it be stopped. Second, he would find out who it was that had caused this to happen. Certainly he would have you thrown out of the town. And who knows what would happen with this army you mentioned."
Does he listen to anyone? Is there someone whom has his ear? If not your father, do you? Does he have a wife? Or?
She smiles wanly and she says, "No. My mother died. My grandmother died some years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
It happened when..." She kind of, again, looks around nervously, and then she says, "My grandfather had been looking along the riverbank with some people from the town and had discovered a few stray orcs. He found out about it and sent word to Bard and to Dale. But the orcs that he had found escaped him. Later, one of those orcs came upon my grandmother when she was out gathering some flowers. They killed her. The orcs were then killed by the people of my town, but my grandfather blamed Bard, for he never responded, and my grandfather believed it was his fault that my grandmother was dead. Since she died, there are few who can speak to him. He loves us dearly, has always said that he does, and I feel it, but I think he would not listen to one such as me."
I'm sorry for your loss. That is all too common around here. I wonder, is your grandmother place of rest is nearby? An ancestral tomb or hall, perhaps?
Yes, there is not far from out of town. There is actually where she has been buried.
I'm thinking that I wonder if your grandfather, if not for any allegiance to Bard, but to for vengeance against these creatures that took the love of his life. I'm wondering if we could take him there and remind him of who she was and what she might have wanted him to have done.
And she sort of nods and she says, "But how would such a thing be done?"
That's a good question. Well, I think he might have already answered it. If he found out that something was happening, no doubt he would come and try and have us stopped. Perhaps if you can gather a few of these men and women who might be willing to meet with me, tell them to meet me at the barrow. And when your grandfather finds out, as he seems like quite the cunning fellow, not one to be duped, no doubt he has me being watched. He'll come and find us there. Perhaps I can confront him there.
And she nods and she says, "All right, I'll go as quickly as may be. Be ready, though. You'll probably need to go there shortly. I'll gather the people together, have them meet you out there, perhaps in an hour."
We'll go right away.
And she nods and then stands up and then she says, "Please, don't let any of this reach my grandfather's ears, or indeed my sister. Both of us care deeply for my grandfather, but Erna, that's my sister, she believes that anything he says is always right. But you see, I've listened to my grandmother and to others when she was alive. No one is always right about all things. My grandmother used to say that only a fool ignores the storm outside their own home. And I guess I take after my grandmother." And she smiles and then bows her head and then turns and then exits. And then, Robar, you have a chance to decide what you want to do before I sort of reconnect you with Inga one way.
I'll loudly, loudly cough and make my exit well announced.
Right.
Yeah,
Time to go.
Yeah, better head for the barrow.
Okay. Are you gonna sort of go by Inga as you depart?
Yeah. I'll drop by and let her know the plan.
Okay. All right. So you depart along with the river. And with Stone. And this is a good moment to pause for just a moment and say welcome to everybody who's here for day 54 of Adventures in Middle-earth, Wilderland Adventures, sponsored by Cubicle 7. This is the Crossings of Selduin. We are joined today by Mr. Will Jones as Robar Staunton and by Terry Toons as Inga, daughter of Ida. We do not have today Amal Elmatar as the river. She'll be back with us next week. She had scheduling snafu, and we hope everything's okay with Trendane, who normally plays Tawny Bear. We have not heard from Trend, so I hope everything's okay with him. But we will be going here for about another 35 to 40 minutes, roughly speaking. And then we'll close up shop for the session. If you like what you see in here, please follow the channel, follow us, support the Patreon, sub to our channel, and check out the videos of this campaign on YouTube, because we will have another one of these next Tuesday. So, all right, so you depart the inn. And as you leave, you can see that Inga and Tani are just walking away from the base of the gate where there is like this ladder there. So you all can sort of see each other essentially as you're walking away.
Inga.
Yes, it's me.
I've got an idea. I'm going to head to a barrow where grandmother's laid to rest.
Your grandma died? I'm so sorry.
No, not mine. No,
Oh, okay.
She's already dead, I think. No, this is actually the guy who runs the town's wife. She was killed by orcs, and, well, I'm thinking that I might be able to stir him to some vengeance if he remembers how she died.
Okay.
You know, just dig up some old wounds, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I hope you know what you're doing.
Yeah, me too. Hadn't thought
Yeah,
about it that much.
Very much surprising. Well, anyway, like, we assessed the bridge and the gate and everything. My next idea was to go check the docks and ask the fishermen and traders if they have seen anything while they were on the river. So,
Good idea.
By the way, Terry, I wanted to Inga, I wanted to mention that the gates that were rusted open do look as if they could maybe be serviced. Like, you think, you might be able to fix them, but you'd need to spend, not like forever, but you need to spend a little bit of time doing it. But you think you might be able to get them, like, the hinges working again, theoretically.
okay.
They seem rusted mostly from disuse and exposure, not because they've been damaged. I mean, specifically. Okay, so you are going down to the docks. So you're going down with the docks with them, and then you're all going to go to the barrow, if I understand this correctly. Is that, or are you just going
docks
straight?
on the way to the barrows?
Yes, actually, the
Oh, okay,
barrow is to the
then-
east of town. Yep, not far away from town either, like maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, then in that case, I think I would like to. No, never mind. Let's just do that.
Okay. So as you go by the docks, first of all, to sort of check out what's down there, you can see that there are a few of these boats that are tied up in the dock, and you can see a couple of people at the docks that are sort of chattering to each other about something or other. One of them is kind of gesturing down to the boat, presumably his boat, and then the other one is kind of shaking his head as if, no, whatever the conversation is. You can see another set of boats on the other dock where people seem to be loading up boats, and yet another dock where people seem to be unloading it. So basically this seems like kind of your small, tiny shipyard where there's sort of trade discussions that are happening. Not a lot of fishermen that you can see, Inga, that are obviously so, but it looks like more trade and sort of stuff like that that's happening here of various goods.
Well, that's even better because that means they have traveled farther. Well, I guess I'm just gonna walk right up to like one that looks the least busy right now.
Okay, there's one who's coiling rope and kind of piling in their boat. So
yeah, I'm gonna walk up to that one.
Okay.
And as we walk up to them, Inga goes, "Greetings. Do you have a minute?"
Aye, perhaps just a minute.
Right. Well, my name is Inge, daughter of Ida, at your service.
Never heard of her. Keeps wrapping the rope.
Doesn't surprise me, honestly. I also haven't heard from her in a while. Anyway, what was I? Oh, yes. So, are you a tradesman who travels by ship?
Aye.
Yes. I was wondering, from which side have you last come here? Stream up or stream down?
And he says, I came from upstream.
I see. Have you happened to notice anything weird, specifically on the southern shore of the river?
And he says, there's always weird things happening on the southern shore. A river running goes right past Mirkwood. You can see some hear some howling, see some things flashing in the shadows. I always try to keep my head down and face forward. That's how I've lived this long anyway.
Yeah. Have you perhaps seen any orc parties traveling? Or the likes?
And he says, not as of late. I used to see orcs back in the days, but it's been a long time since I've passed that part of my life.
These days, I try to make sure I keep out of the way of orcs. A lot of crows, though. You can see those in the sky.
Yeah, we also seen a lot of them.
Hey, big boss.
So they're also further upstream? Interesting. In the Mirkwood? Over the Mirkwood?
There's always the orcs coming there from out of Mirkwood, and other strange creatures, spiders and the like. But I never go through there. I pick up my car, go north, go south as fast as I can, and the river goes pretty quick these days. And then make sure that I keep my head down until I arrive down here. Then I get off, sell my goods, get enough money to survive, and the whole process starts again.
Yeah. So would you say there are more crows here than usually?
He kind of nods thoughtfully.
Aye, now that you mention it, there might be a couple more than normal. But it's dark times everywhere. The end of the goblin armies and the defeat of the big dragon didn't do anything for those of us down here on the ground. Life's garbage, and then you're buried in the heap of garbage, I always say.
He kind of, sort of gives you this smile of crooked, broken teeth. He kind of tosses the rope on the boat and then starts coiling another one.
I see. Well, thank you very much for your time. You've been very helpful. If I could ask one more thing, do you happen to know any traders here who have come from downstream?
Downstream. Not so many that come down from the south.
Yeah.
There's a few I know, but they come from villages only a day or so away, and I don't think any of them are here right now.
Not a single one?
Not at the moment. Normally there's a few. Well, one or two of them anyway, but none right now. We've only got 4 traders in the town, and all of them,
He kind of jerks his head over his shoulder at the people that are arguing, and then a couple of others.
he says, they all come from up north like me.
Wait, is it unusual that the people from the south aren't here right now?
Well, no, depends on where you are. There's more people that stop at this town than used to, but still, it's not like some huge city. We're not talking Dale here. It's not surprising, really, that, I don't think it's that surprising. I haven't seen him for a day or so. That don't mean anything.
Oh, okay. Well, I suppose you're right. Then I wish you a good day. Thank you very much for your time.
Aye.
and he kind of grunts and goes back to coiling rope. Okay.
I really was hoping we could find somebody who came from downstream.
Well, small towns.
Yeah. He did say that by ship it takes a day to travel from the village to here. Oh, well, he didn't specify which direction, because downstream obviously is faster, but...
Right.
But yeah, he did notice that there are more crows flying around than usually, so that's worth noting, I think.
Definitely. Well, I'm hoping that we can confront this guy at the cemetery. Let's make him see some sense.
Alright. Let's go then.
Did you mention that the crows fly straight? Okay, so all of you make your way over to where you heard this barrow was described, and indeed, only about, as I say, 5 minutes maybe to the east of the town, you see a hill with several stones, large sort of stones that have been set at the top of it, that is right on the banks of the river. You can hear the sort of pleasant sound of the river flowing next to it. And as you get up to the hill, you can see that the stone itself is there, and there are just a couple of these stones on the top which are unmarked. You know this just because of the location of where it was described to you, Robar, but there's nothing on the graves themselves to say who belongs to whom.
Okay. I guess just head towards it.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't know who he's going to be here yet. But he figures there might be like a special resting place if he takes a closer look.
Sure. Make an investigation check for me, please.
Yeah. 20. Nice.
Yeah. When you look around, it does look like there is one stone that seems to be sort of more centrally placed. There looks like there's an array of maybe 6 or 7 stones. And as you look around and note this, you can actually see now, Robar, that these other stones, some of them look very, very old. This stone that you're looking at that's in the middle seems newer than the rest, but a lot of these stones look very old, as if they date back considerable length of time.
Huh.
And then this one stone, which is, again, clearly newer than the rest of them.
Okay. I think this might be it.
And as you position yourself around it, you can hear a little bit of movement from behind you, and as you turn around, you can see there are a few men who are coming towards you. 2 of them are dressed in what looks like leather armor. They have sort of wooden shields. Again, I've mentioned before, sort of this proud, straight bearing, but not super well armored. You know, like they're okay, they're fine, but like, and then so there's 2 of those, and behind them are 2 men who look to be about the same age, but they are not with armor. They are literally carrying pitchforks. They each have pitchforks. Have a pitchfork, the 2 that are not in armor, and they come up to you, and one of them kind of tips his cap, kind of respectfully, one of the ones in front with the armor, and says, "We heard from Idis that you might be making some preparations, sir, for what might be coming from the south. Well, me and my mates here, we thought we'd try to help. There's not many in the town that can do much fighting. Maybe a dozen or so with weapons and armor, but maybe 20 of us of fighting age. But we'll do whatever we can." And they all look at you. They're probably all in their 20s, Robar, and like they look like, you know, relatively strong guys, but this is, you know, not a lot of armor and weaponry to work with.
You're all very brave to come here. I know it must have taken a lot of courage to stand up to your lord. I appreciate that.
Well, begging your pardon, sir, we ain't standing up to him again as much as it is trying to save him from himself, you might say. He can get a little stubborn, and there's many in the town that like that, and they won't come, not unless somehow you are able to convince him. But there's others of us. Well, my brother, he kind of nods at the other guy in the armor. He says, "My brother's seen fighting down south." And the other brother says, in this kind of ragged voice, "I wouldn't want to see anything like that again. If there's orcs that are coming, they got to be stopped." And the first one who spoke says, as he says, we're willing to do what's necessary, but we can't let people we can't let the master know. He wouldn't understand, sir.
I'm hoping that I can make him see some sense. And for that, I'm gonna need your help as well. You see, Idis told me that his wife, her grandmother, was killed by orcs, and that perhaps your lord soured when King Bard refused help. Well, I'm hoping that we can rouse him to vengeance in one last fight. He may be an older man, but he still has strength in those bones and the heart of a man of Selduin, I can tell. Perhaps we can convince him lustily to assist us.
And he nods and he says,
That's as may be, sir. It's possible he might be able to help. I don't know whether... Well, you see, he blames King Bard for what happened, and I don't rightly know if you could convince him otherwise, sir. Once he's made his mind up, he's hard to move, they say. But, well, It's possible. But I have to say, sir, and he kind of looks nervously around, well, this is where his wife was buried, and he may not take it kindly that you're here visiting her grave without leave, if you take my meaning.
Well, don't expect him to take kindly to much of anything I do. It's just a risk we have to take. Desperate times call for desperate measures.
One of the men with pitchfork steps forward and says,
Sir, me and my cousin here,
he points to the other one holding a pitchfork.
he says, we ain't got much weaponry, but, well, I mean, I actually killed a wolf once, I did, and, my cousin here, well, he fought off a couple of wild dogs, too, so, we're willing to stand up. We don't rightly know exactly how to fight proper, you might say, but, well, we're strong enough.
And he looks at the other one kind of nods solemnly. And he says,
you could put us wherever you want, we'll do what's necessary.
And the one who first spoke to you in the armor kind of drops his voice and says,
Sir, the truth is that most of them, they ain't got much training, proper training for fighting. Maybe you could run them through their paces a bit, sir.
Of course. See, you're all brave lads, but experience is the true test of a warrior. I'll do my best to train you with what little time we have. We may have days, we may have hours, but I'll do my best. And luckily for you, your ancestors built that bridge there. And that strong portcullis will hold us against any force. Selduin is yet to fall yet, am I right?
and they nod, and one of them says,
That's right, sir. My great-great-great-great-grandfather worked on that bridge, and you can even see some of the stones where he marked his name when they were doing the laying of the stones. Well, sometimes, sir, when I go over that bridge, I look at that stone, and I remember what my history is. We may just be farmers, sir, but, well, there was a time when we mattered to people outside this town, I mean.
Of course. And after the battle is done, it won't be your ancestors that will be the ones remembered. Well, not just them. You too will go down in history as brave men who stood and fought against an invasion that saved thousands. You'll be the ones laying the stones.
they kind of look at each other and kind of nod and kind of grip their pitchforks with a little more, confidence, perhaps. And this gives you a chance to start doing a little bit of training with them as you're waiting, perhaps. And as you're doing this training, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about
While
that in a
he's
minute.
doing that, I would first like to do something, because I'm assuming that training is going to take some time.
It's going to take a little while. Well, you can do it simultaneous, unless you're doing
Yeah.
something that he needs. Otherwise, I was going to have him do that while you do what you wanted to do. But
Well, I mean, somebody in the party should take care of that, and that is looking into getting that gate repaired.
okay, do you want to try? to go do
Basically,
that?
somebody should go find the village smith and have him take a look at the gate, and then help him work on that.
Okay.
So probably Tony or Inge should do that, because Tony is a big, strong guy who can lift shit, and Inge knows a thing or two about construction work. So.
I was going to say you probably are the one who has the most logical construction connection of everybody. So you will go off to fight the smith. To fight the smith. You're going to go fight the smith. You are going to go find the smith.
Kill him!
Okay. So you're going to go find the smith. As you go off with Tawny in tow, River and Robar and Stone stay with these people, training them. Robar, you notice as you work with them that there is something, and you've experienced this a bit before because of your own heritage, there is something odd about the feeling of taking people that really don't know what they're doing. And, honestly, the young men have no idea.
Right.
They can wave around a pitchfork, but, actually using it against hardened warriors is another thing. However, one of the things you notice is that as you begin to teach them a little bit of feint, back up, block, they almost fall into it smoothly, and there's a moment where you can almost get, as you can see, they're kind of sweating but sort of have these happy smiles on their face as they're doing these things. You get the impression like you have an image in your mind of what it would be like to look at their ancestors having fought this way, hundreds of years previous, and what it must have been like for them to kind of connect in that moment to kind of an ancestral history. And as they sort of train, they make remarkable progress in a couple hours. And while they're doing this, some others gather so that by the time that you are well into your training, maybe about, I would say maybe 2 hours or so, there's a good maybe 10 or 11 people that have gathered. And mostly there's about 5 or 6 of them that are, no, I should say more than that, probably about 8 of them are the pitchfork variety. And there are 4 total armored guards. And the first one that came to you, the first armored guard that talked to you, made it clear that probably you weren't going to get more than 4 because everyone else is like at their post and or doesn't want to go because they believe in what Eric has to say or whatever. So this looks like this is your crew. You basically got 4 guys in armor and 8 guys who aren't. And one of them in particular, with this pitchfork, is a very young man who calls himself Honest. And Honest, has kind of this sandy brown hair and looks like he hasn't grown into his body. He's kind of like tall and skinny. His pitchfork, he looks a little nervous, and frankly, like the whole men of fighting age thing, you think this is pushing it. Like he might be 15, you're like, like maybe 15. And his voice kind of occasionally cracks a little bit, and you're like, wait a minute. But he seems determined to fight with the rest of them. And so a couple times the men sort of look at you, and one of them sort of is like, I don't know whether you should keep Honest around. And Honest like is always like kind of eyes sort of feverish, straight ahead, and like keeps like doing what he needs to do as you kind of assemble them. So what I'd like to do here is I'm going to give you, because of this preparation, I'm going to give you what we're going to call a preparation die. So what this means is that during the battle to come, assuming there is a battle, but I think we can pretty much take a guess that there will be.
Spoilers!
Any of you...
Railroading!
Exactly, sorry. Any player character can take and roll one of these preparation dies, which are D6s, and add the results to any one attack roll, damage roll, saving throw, skill check, or add the result to your AC and reaction to an attack. So you can use one of those preparation dice. So because you've done this preparation, you're going to get one of those dice. And depending on other preparations that you do, you may get another one of those as well. For example, I may be talking to Inga about such a preparation die in just a minute. But you've got one of those for the party right now. So you should mark that down. And again, it's the party's dice, so anyone can use that.
But like, there's only one so far. It's not like that we all get one.
Correct.
But like
Only
the
got
party
one.
gets one.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. That's one. Okay. So as you're doing that, so again, a couple of hours pass, and as you're doing that, you hear the sound in the far distance, perhaps, of maybe a horn blowing. I'm going to pause that for a minute, and I'm going to come to Inga here. And I'm looking at the time. Well, I know you got 10 minutes. And I'm looking at Inga here. So, Inga, when you go to find the smith, you find that the smith, such as he is currently not well. He is currently just ill and basically has not been able to do much of anything other than just sort of dealing with a fever. It looks like he's not going to die from it, but is kind of a sort of a fairly serious fever. And so at the moment, the town doesn't have a smith available to it. The good news, though, is that there is an assistant, and they also have tools that you could theoretically use. These are kind of not great tools. It's sort of like putting a French chef in a McDonald's and being like, here's a fryer for you to use, but like, whatever, like at least it's something more than your hands. So the assistant offers to come with you.
Wait, what kind of sick is Smith? Like, is he like completely out of order, or is he at least able to give advice?
Not really in position to move. He's kind of feverish, and in fact is doing a lot of sleeping. He's better than he was. They were actually worried that he wasn't going to make it a couple days ago, but he seems to be out of danger. But the person who serves as like the town healer is kind of like, yeah, he's not. He's going to need a couple more days.
Because I would have been like, oh yeah, at least he can come with us, just tell Inge what to do, and she would do it. But like,
not so much. But the assistant though is there. The assistant is young, probably an 18 or 19-year-old, and actually is apparently this person's daughter. And her name is Jania. And Jania says, comes with you, and she looks fairly kind of, pretty strong, like she's been at the forge herself, like strong arms and everything. And so Jania brings a wagon full of tools over to the door, and when you sort of bring her back to the door, and she kind of looks up at it, and she shakes her head, and she says, yeah, Dad's been wanting to try to fix this for a while, but, well, they never really gave him permission to, at least not to waste his time on it. They said other things were more important. I suppose no one really cares about me and what I waste my time doing, though. They always said the gate is the only thing that mattered.
Well, apparently it's not, looking at the state of it, but let's have a look.
And she points at the portcullis and she says, well, they always said that thing would be the thing that matters. And she points at the thing with the bars. Which...
Well, we have a saying in Dwarvish, doppelt gemoppelt hält besser, so let's get to it.
And she kind of blinks and says, oh, all right then. Clearly having no idea what you just said.
It's like, basically means double the time holds better.
Yeah, I would have figured it
That
was something
translates
like that.
to.
She's happy to go along with you and do it. So, watched by the sort of curious looks of the guards, you set to work. So the gate basically has these sort of hinges that you can see are very strong, and but they do look to be rusted and kind of out of. One of them basically looks like it's a little bit bent, and that may explain why on each door one of them is a little bit bent. And you think that's because the door's weight was a little bit too much for the hinges originally, and so over time it slowly bent the hinges down a little bit.
Oh, I know exactly.
Yeah.
What that works like. So yeah, like the very first thing Inge tells Tony to do, actually, because he's a big strong guy, is that he should try moving the gates without us doing anything on it, to like see if it like immediately breaks off and is beyond repair, or if
have him make a strength check for me, please.
Like, I don't want him to try to break it off. Just
no, right.
You know,
got your door. Like, here's your door.
Oh wait, actually Inge is stronger, so Inge does that, I guess. Never mind. Small but mighty, as they say.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, now I rolled as Tony. Well, under Tony's name, but is Inge's roll. Never mind. So Inge rolled 13.
Okay. So you pull on it, and it definitely does not break off. It makes this like this sort of cracking sound, as if there's, but it doesn't move. But it doesn't fall apart either.
Okay. Then Inge turns to Jania and asks, so how do you guys usually deal with rust?
And she says, well, my dad always says that there's nothing a good hammer can't knock free. So usually we use hammers to knock off the rust, and then, some kind of special oil that we've got. I brought some in the cart here to basically lubricate what's left.
Well, then let's get to work.
All right. And Wise Growth. It is good to see you, and Wise Growth, don't go anywhere, because after this session is over, I have your epic poem finished, so I will read it to you afterwards. All right, so you begin to sort of hammer away, and you notice that Jania is actually pretty good at this, like pretty strong and fairly sort of decisive in her movements. You know, she doesn't just like hammer randomly. She's actually hammering at the right spots, and then starts placing some of this oil. And after about an hour and a half or 2 hours or so, you all sort of give a satisfied grunt as with a push, the doors can now close, open. They still creak like all get out, but they are definitely movable, and they appear to close flush. You had been a little worried that they were going to be off of sync from each other because of the hinges, but once you fix them both, they actually are pretty even. So it looks like they would close. And once you close it, you can actually see that there's a fairly large kind of bar that comes down over the top of it. You can kind of lower, like, over the top if you wish.
Good, then as a last step, I would like to reinforce those hinges, because if they're already like hanging down, like I would see if I can like do anything to make sure that like the gates don't break out of their hinges.
You can do that.
Or the hinges don't break out of the wall.
You can do that. I'm going to give you, as a result of this, another one of these preparation dice. So you have now 2 of them. And as you're finishing up work, just about the same time as Robar is finishing up with his training, you hear the horns blowing that I mentioned before. And you see riding at speed this one basically orc that is accompanied by 2 others, and the orc is on back of what looks like a warg. You can see even from this distance. And so the gates, of course, are already closed, and you can see guards sort of taking up position on the bank. And Inga, as you stand where you are, you can see the master, Eric, hobbling up, accompanied by his granddaughters, as always. And you can see a man next to him. This is not someone you met before, but he looks a lot like Eric, although younger, and you assume this must be the son, must be his son, and that Robar told you had said existed. And Eric turns to this man and says,
You know what to do. Just do what we've always done. Speak to them courteously, and we'll be waiting.
And the man sort of nods and looks at you and sort of silently and looks at the granddaughters. And you can see that one of the granddaughters in particular, Inga, looks like frightened, basically. And the gates then open in the portcullis. Like, you notice when the gates open, by the way, that Eric kind of looks at you, like does a double take with you. Like, why are these doors working now? You know, but he doesn't really say anything. And then the portcullis, cranks up. And the young man walks across. Not young man, but, man walks across. And the portcullis is about halfway open. He walks across to the middle of the bridge and stands there in his armor, holding a spear, waiting as this orc on a wolf gallops up. Very sort of large, muscular orc. And sort of waits, and the wolf kind of walks up to him on the bridge and growls. And the man on the bridge says, We greet you from Selduin. My father, the master, Eric, son of Erland, son of Eagle, is here and holds this place. If you would cross, then you must pay the toll to do so. We will allow you safe passage so long as you take no arms against us. And there's a long, heavy silence, and the 2 orcs behind him look at each other. And then the orc sort of straightens up, and then with a quick motion, grabs his spear and stabs and runs the man through, and picks him up and tosses him over the bridge into the river running. And there's this horrified gasp from the townspeople. And the orc looks up at the gate and says,
We take what we want,
he shouts.
You will be our slaves. Open the gate, maggots, or what happened to him will happen to all of you.
And with that,
No!
I think we will bring the session to a close.
I knew it.
Welp, this is what happens when you
Yikes.
can't trust. Never trust an orc.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to tell these people?
And I should say, Inga, that you looked over in time to see just this, like, hollow, horrified expression on Eric's face. So, we are, yeah, that's going to be, This ridiculous surrender and die. Well, they deserved it. Well, yeah.
We told them. We did tell them.
We told them this was going to happen. So, yes, good stuff though today. I'm sorry that you folks had to do it on your own, but you did admirably, as I would have expected. And hopefully next week we will have a full crew that will be able to take on this battle, such as it is now that you have at least done a little bit of preparation with it. I will work up from the bottom as I usually do. I will start with Terry. I was glad to see Inga getting a chance to not only assert herself by talking a little bit about this is what I know about the orcs, but then also doing a little work with smith crafting and checking out the people of the docks and all that kind of stuff. I was interested to see how both of you were going to deal with a town that wasn't like, oh, sure, we'll help you, but was more like, uncertain about it. So I'm curious to see how that all works out. But how'd you feel about today, Terry, and what were the lovely people see next?
Well, I mean, as always, this was fun. Though it is really sad that the other guys weren't here.
Yeah.
I bet like Trandane is gonna be here like now, like
right.
in a second.
Yeah.
He'll be like, I'm sorry, I overslept.
Yep.
But yeah, can't be helped. Sad. But yes. Aside from that, it still was a lot of fun. I wish my cat would have been more comfortable with like being in front of
She'll
the
get
camera.
used to us. I mean, listen, it's the internet.
Oh well, like currently all she does is like play and sleep, basically. That or like always in like one after the other.
Me too.
Play game, yeah.
The dream.
But yeah. Where will people see me next? Next Tuesday here.
Next day is Tuesday.
Usual.
Here. Same bat time, same bat channel for Tolkien Tuesdays, as we call it.
Yeah, hashtag Tolkien Tuesdays. Woo!
So yeah, that'll be happening next Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. and I am looking forward to it. And you should follow Terry on all the things, right, Terry? On all the things, Instagram,
Twitter and those
etc.
type of things at TariTunes.
Awesome.
You'll find me somewhere.
I will find you. We will find you somewhere, and of course on Discord as well. Thank you, Terry. Always a great pleasure. And Will, I know you got to get going, so
Absolutely.
I will say thank you as well to you. Where will the lovely people see you next? Besides here next week.
Yeah, you can find all the stuff I do over at Cobalt Press, twitch.tv/Cobalt Press, or twitch.tv/Encounter Roleplay, dropping D&D goodness and Call of Cthulhu and role-playing stuff. I had a great time today. Man, I'm hoping that I can dredge up some old wounds with this old guy and maybe now that his people are being killed by orcs, he'll try and see some sense. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of Walder Freyed us, at the twins.
Yes, King Rob. Better
Yeah.
time to get a red wedding.
He got us. He got us good. Yeah, so, well, that's just the price you pay when you keep your doors closed and don't let your neighbors in to help you. That would be a lesson for us all in the dark days that we live in today as well.
It's interesting, by the way, just very quickly, that's one of the things I think Tolkien always does very well is this notion that it's not just an automatic, that, like, everyone's like, oh, yeah, we're all on the same side.
Yeah.
Like, they all have their own histories and, like, being pissed off because so-and-so didn't help me 10 years ago when this...
Right, and not letting that go, yeah.
Like, so that's I always thought that was an interesting and more subtle way of doing it.
Everybody's got a grudge.
So, yes,
I mean, it's very realistic, isn't it? I mean, yeah, people hold grudges, especially when their wives get killed by orcs, I guess.
Yep.
That would piss me off, I guess. So,
Yep.
Understandable, but frustrating,
Yep, and it's one of those things that, again, it's like, we're just trying to save you. We're just we're
Yeah,
just
we're
trying to
trying to
save
help you,
you. Like, Aradino was like, look, I mean, you deserve it. Like, they deserve to die. And I'm like, well, no, not all of them do. Like, your boy, the Oris, your pitchfork guy, I mean,
he was a good lad.
I mean, this is like not even remotely as horrible as Stonyford. Like, oh my god, those people deserve to die.
Yeah,
But, like,
that was a mess.
Yeah, they could go die.
Stonyford is like saving Twin Peaks, so.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, so the lovely people will see you here. They'll see you over on Cobalt Press too.
Yeah, Cobalt Press and Counter Roleplay, all those good stuff. We'll be back on the grind. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much to Will and Terry. Both great work today. People in chat, don't go anywhere because I'm going to do a epic poem reading, and then we got to do nominations for Game of the Month. But thank you to you folks. I will see you folks 10:30 next week and on Tuesday, and hopefully we will get everyone on board this time, awake and asleep and or not asleep and ready to go. So thank you to Will, thank you to Terry, and chat. Can we get some love for them? And thank you, folks. I will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.
Okay. All right. So, yeah. Well, you're gonna get. You're definitely gonna get that. The town is gonna be a big. Obviously, the battle is gonna be a big focus of what happens. What happens next time, as this sort of battle is happening. But I always thought, again, I've always really liked that idea that it's not just sort of automatically like, oh yeah, all the good people all measure up, and it's red team versus blue team. Like it doesn't always work that way, honestly. And like, so I really am glad that they sort of think about things in a different way. And things could have gone differently, but they didn't manage to persuade them. The fine people of the Lord of the Rings group did not manage to persuade them. So we'll have to see how that happens going forward. But so just one quick note to finish up with the Tolkien stuff, and that is that we will be back next Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this time we should have a full crew, he said, knocking on all kinds of wood, because we will have, because Amal will be with us, and Trent should be with us, and I hope everything's okay with Trent, but we will double check on him. I imagine that he just overslept, because he has been a busy bee lately, so I imagine that's what happened, but we will check in with him as soon as we can. Now, what I do have today, though, before, knock on my head wood, exactly, I do have two things we need to do. One, I need to read this epic poem, which has been provided to us that has been provided to us as a consequence of Patreon. And then we need to do the nominations for the Chat Chosen Game of the Month. So, Wise Growth, are you still here, sir? Because I have your epic poem, which is complete, and I am ready to read it, as is the way this works. So, are you ready, sir? Is my question. I am still here. Okay. So here we go. So this is, again, for those of you who are curious, this is an epic poem which is coming to Wise Growth as a consequence of his having supported our Patreon, having come to us watching YouTube videos, actually, of this very campaign. And so he is supporting at a certain level, and so he chose an epic poem. And so I did this actually on Friday. And so here we go. Wise Growth. Not a sort of fool's growth, rushing, running, wild man's growth, but a wise one, that's the key. And one word from him, you'll see that this is truly what he is. Not for him some random biz, hit and run and then pass by. No, he thinks it through, and I, for one, am pleased that's so. Most travel he can clearly boast, love for new worlds he has seen, sky of blue or grasses green, mountains high or valleys low. Place to place, not fast, but slow, taking all the wonder in, there's much joy in where he's been. And yet, the stories that he's found, whether city, village, town, on or offline, matters not. Love for narrative, I thought, would also be a subject strong, but so that I don't run long, I'll say that all his gracious words, support for us has well been heard, as generous and kind and true. And so I'll make this claim to you. A member of the Arvanauts, Wise Growth is, and there's a lot of goodwill he has built. And so, whatever road he finds to go, he'll always have a home with us. When all is said and done, I trust he'll be an Arvanaut for life. No matter if in peace or strife, we're most glad now to have him here. And so, Wise Growth, we all now cheer. There we go. Epic poem for Wise Growth. I hope that you like that, Wise Growth. I will send you a copy of this via Patreon. And if you folks liked it, you can get other such things by supporting the Patreon yourself. So I hope you like that, Wise Growth. I tried to incorporate what I could. And so, is there a hint of Edgar Allan Poe? There's a hint of a lot of poets. I mean, that nature of the bum-ba-da-dum-ba-da-bum-ba-da-bum, there's a certain kind of cadence and rhythm to it that I often use for a lot of these. And I've done a bunch of them now, actually. These poems I have done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4. 44 of these epic poems. Oh, I'm glad. I'm very glad, Wise Growth. I'm glad that it did. I tried to include things that was in there. And I actually have one of these poems for a person who is no longer with us, Alphador, who passed away. I was back in 2015, and he passed away a couple of years ago. He was a person who used to support us on GOG and everything too, so that's kind of sad. Absolutely, you will get a copy. Yeah, I'm going to send you one via the Patreon as well, Wise Growth. So I'm glad you liked it, and again, thank you so much for the support. And if you folks like that, and you're like, how do I get one of those? You can also support the Patreon at that $10 or higher level, which would help as well. Now, the next thing that we have to do, so I will send you a copy of that right after the stream is over, Wise Growth. The second thing we have to do is we have to run our... The second thing that we have to do, well, maybe that makes you an epic poet. I suppose that's possible. The second thing that we have to do is we have to decide what the chat chosen game of the month is going to be. And I know that we have got a number of people who would like to jump on board to talk about that. So let me fire up Arvbot here. There's also a new poll system, by the way, that Twitch has built, which means that Arvbot may not be as necessary soon anymore. You can actually create a poll in chat. Moderators can do this as well, and basically see the poll working like right in chat. Now, we're not going to do that we're still going to use the straw poll for now, but they're rolling it out, and it's actually pretty cool. Like there's more than you might expect. So it's pretty cool. Oh, 50 poems. That's a good question, Aaron. I guess 50 poems, maybe that makes me an epic poet. I hope so, perhaps. That's a good question, actually. I hadn't thought about how many poems I need to make. I've written more poems than that, but as far as these are concerned. Okay, so again, the question, and again, I'm going to be playing this in 2 weeks. So next week is going to be the final vote on this next Tuesday, and then 2 weeks from now is when I'm actually going to play it. So I will now take nominations, just one game per person. I reserve the right to veto these if A, I've already played it, or B, on stream, B, I'm going to be playing it as part of my usual list soon, or C, if it's a horror game or something that I just don't think is going to work, but I try not to do that if I can avoid it. Also, one nomination per person. So what game would you like me to try? I can play any of the Retron, like basically anything that uses Super Nintendo, Nintendo, Genesis. I can use stuff through Wii U, my virtual console. I have a PS4, so I could play a PS4 game as well, or one that I buy. I have a Nintendo Switch, so I could get one of those. And I also, of course, have PC. So any of those are options. I do not have an Xbox. So if you have an Xbox exclusive, I'm afraid you're out of luck. I have an Xbox 360, but not a new Xbox. And I don't have... like a Dreamcast or things like that. So there's certain limitations. So what have we got? These are all good possibilities. Growlancer 2, which I believe Nonstop has recommended before. Frostpunk, I know I have seen quite a bit of, and I'm happy to give that a shot. Death Stranding, oh man. It's so weird though, Big Boss. It's so Kojima. Oh my God, I saw Rob playing it. I'm like, what is this? Like, it's this dude running around with a bunch of cargo on his back. I'm like, this is so Kojima. Like, oh, God. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm okay with that. I'm just kind of like, taking game. If you could find the game. Oh, tell me which one. Is it one that you sent me, Marinda? Yeah, UPS the game. It's definitely esoteric. Oh, yes. Tron 2.0. I remember. We will put that in. Third time's the charm. Elsinore, yeah. That's fine. That's actually on my list, but it's far down the list, Marinda. So if people vote for it, then that basically... Essentially what that is it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure Hamlet game a little bit, where you play Ophelia. Marinda sent this along to me a while ago, and I thought it was a neat sort of idea. So I have it on my list to try, but it's way down the line. So if it wins, then I'll play it a lot earlier. So I'm fine with all of these so far. Growlancer 2, Frostpunk, Death Stranding, Tron 2.0, Elsinore. Any other game suggestions that people have? Majora's Mask plus Hamlet. I mean, that's a pretty good pitch line, right? Majora's Mask plus Hamlet. Any other suggestions? Ground Lancer 2, Frostpunk, Death Stranding, Tron 2.0, Elsinore. Any others? 5 is a good list, though. Disco Elysium. Yes. Now, interesting you mentioned that, Caro. I absolutely have Disco Elysium already on the list, but I would not mind putting that on the list because I might then move it up a little bit. As of right now, I'm playing Neverwinter Nights, Tyrants of Moonsea, and then The Witcher 3, and then I have Disco Elysium as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 11 down on the list. But if it won, so I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this on there. If it won, I would play it a lot earlier. And if it's good, then maybe that's the game that I will play after I'm finished with Tyrants of Moonsea. So that's a possibility. So any of these are choices. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to open the poll. So top 3 vote getters. The top 3 vote getters here, folks, will be put into the final straw poll. And then we'll vote on the final straw poll next week, or up until next week. And that will be how that works. So up until next time. Yeah, I've heard really good things about Disco Elysium. I'm excited to play it. I just didn't know when I was going to play it. So, I mean, basically it felt like kind of a lot of Torment. It seemed a lot like Planescape Torment, which is obviously great. So, all right, so we've got Disco Elysium, and then we got 1 vote each. I can see that is the case. We will need to have a couple of tiebreakers because we need to take the top 3 votes. I can't take all of these. So Disco Elysium looks like it's getting through. I mean, so Ground Lancer 2 is a JRPG. Frostpunk is a real-time strategy with, like, you're trying to save these people from like some post-apocalyptic scenario. So you're like building a frost-resistant city, kind of. Death Stranding is UPS the game, as Dragonspear said. It's UPS meets Metal Gear. That's basically Death Stranding. Tron is a, how would you describe Tron? First-person shooter, basically, Dragon? Is that how you would call that? Elsinore we already described as Majora's Mask plus Choose Your Own Adventure, Hamlet. I'm not sure this word great means. What do you think it is? FPS humor game. Okay. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. I am happy to play Tron. No problem with that. So, do we have anyone who's going to be willing to change vote, or anyone who will break this tie between the second placers? Because I might even, I mean, if we get sort of just a generalized support for a second choice, I could just put 2. I don't have to have 3. I could have 2 in the final list, but I have to have more than 1. I could have 2, but I have to have at least 2. So that are in the final sort of final vote. So right now that's Disco Elysium, and then everyone voted for their own thing. So what say the rest of you? Will you have a vote change? Or anyone jumping on board? Anyone? Anybody? No one? Nobody? Okay. So we have Death Stranding. Arendt has changed his vote. So we have Death Stranding and Disco Elysium. Okay. Do we have anyone else? Anyone else? Anybody else? If we have to, I will take the top. I will take 2. I will take just... And if someone wants to change their vote to one of the other ones that's still got 1 vote, then we'd have 3. But you don't have to. No, I know. Well, you don't have to, Arendt, I feel bad about that. I mean, like, I know it's always one of those, like, everybody looking at each other and going, you go, you go, you go. But sometimes we have more people that do it and sometimes fewer. So, anyone else? Otherwise, I will go with these 2. But you'd have to change your vote to one of the other ones. You could change your vote. Oh, wait. But you're already with Disco Elysium. So yours wouldn't help. What? That'll be your next time. Big Boss, how does that help? That does not help. That made things worse. You went the opposite way. You are working opposed to the skill of... This is not helping. We cannot put a poll up with 6 games. Can't do that. Not a final poll. We need something else to have another vote. No, I wanted you to help. I don't want you to vote. I want you to help. I want you to vote and help. Thank you, Daedalus. All right. So we have now 2 votes. We've got 1 for Frostpunk. We got 2 for Frostpunk and 2 for Disco Elysium. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? Last chance. True. Arendt's game did need a vote. That's true. So at least that feels now fair. All right. We have Frostpunk and Disco Elysium. 1 more vote. Yeah. I don't ever do that, Arendt. I have never tie broken because I feel like I get that with my vetoes. Like if I veto a game because I'm like, I just won't play this one, then I feel like that's how I get my voice in there. But otherwise, I really do want this to be something where the viewers, the chat decides what I play. So, yeah, Daedalus swoops in with tiebreaker. Exactly. All right, we need 1 more vote, folks. 1 more vote. $. Lurkers for the win. Exactly. Listen, Daedalus, as you know, everyone always talks about how much they love lurkers, and I am no different. I am happy when lurkers want to participate. I think that's awesome. But those who sit around and lurk and watch, no problem there either. So thank you for jumping in. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anybody else? All right. I'm going to do last call here. Last call. This is your last call to get in a vote. Aha! Questionable results has gotten in. Lurkers for the win. All right. So we got Frostpunk, Death Stranding, and Disco Elysium. Going once. Going twice. And... All right. Tied up with. Okay. So, Frostpunk, Death Stranding, and Disco Elysium. Those are your 3 choices for the month. This is a good set of games. Good set of games. 2 new games that are... One of them is very weird, another one which is also weird but more indie weird, and the other one is more Hideo Kojima weird. And then we have Frostpunk, which is not as new but is within the last 7-8 months, I think, but is kind of a different sort of game also. So it's more interesting this way. There you go. Well, thanks, Questionable Results. I appreciate it. So there we go. So those are the 3. So can I ask Aridinel or Dragonspear, one or the other of my wonderful mods that are here right now, can I ask one or the other of you lovely people to do a to do the what do you call it? To do the straw poll in which you put these things up there. Exactly, Big Boss. No, I got that reference. I mean, Daedalus, as you probably know, my book Icarus, it's is inspired originally by the Icarus myth, although it went in a very different direction. So I can't honestly say that it's really a retelling of the myth. It's not, but it's inspired by it originally. And of course, Daedalus, the great architect and designer who was able to design wings for his son who flew too close to the sun. So, yeah, absolutely. The Daedalian labyrinth. Our boy Daedalus. Is the 2051 sort of like in 2051 we're going to make like a maze, like we're going to figure a way out of a maze like Daedalus would. We're going to make a maze. I'm just curious if that's that part. Anyway, yeah, so is one Aerodonel or Dragon Spear, are one of you folks able to do the straw poll for me? Would you be so kind as to do that? Would one of you lovely people be so kind as to do the straw poll, which just should say, what game should Arv play this month? And then Frostpunk, Death Stranding, and Disco Elysium. In the year 2000. Man, I remember when that was a joke that Conan O'Brien was doing in the year 2000, and it's now almost 20 years later. That is so bizarre. It is almost 20 years after they did that in the year 2000 thing. It's crazy. Time does go. So, can anyone do that? Oh, wow. Subwar 2050. Oh, wow. Yeah, I would not have guessed that. Isn't that ridiculous, Big Boss? We're literally almost midway through November 2019. So we are a month and about 2.5 weeks away. We're about 6.5 weeks away from 20 years past that moment. It's crazy. Yep. Absolutely crazy. So yes, so I'm going to close this poll. Is anyone putting together the straw poll? Can someone tell me? Just let me know that you're working on it or something. One of my mods, somebody. Stop Arvbot. There you go, Ardnell. Exactly. So yeah. So the three games are Frostpunk, Death Stranding, not standing, but stranding, and Disco Elysium. Those are the three. Frostpunk, Death Stranding, and Disco Elysium. So I was about to say two weird and one depressing game, but then I realized that technically all three of those games could be theoretically depressing. It's going to be very different from Untitled Goose Game. I think we can say for sure that Frostpunk, Death Stranding, and Disco Elysium have no connection at all to Untitled Goose Game, which was the chat chosen game of the month last month. I think we're pretty confident that that's the case. It is not so much that. All right. Well, as people are putting together this straw poll, just before I leave, I will let everyone know about what's coming up. So I'm going to be over at GOG with Pen and Pixels at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll be continuing Pathfinder Kingmaker, and I'll be doing that from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. And then I'll be off until Friday. On Friday night at, I believe, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, I've got Esper Genesis making its return, which will be awesome. My space opera game, which has been really good times. So you'll definitely want to stop by for that. And then Saturday, we have got D&D with Infinity Beyond Curse of Strahd again coming at you Saturday evening. So you will not want to miss that. 2 awesome days of that. Then next Tuesday, we've got Adventures of Middle-earth. We have more Emberwind on its way for you, more Hearts of Wulin on its way for you. We have got more Esper Genesis. And of course, we've got the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD mini marathon coming up later in the month. And we've also got, of course, the more playing of Neverwinter Nights, Tyrants of the Moonsea. So we've got that going on as well. Okay. I think that looks right, except yep, you got it right. Perfect. Outstanding. Thank you, sir. You're my hero. You're my hero. I almost called you a hero. You're not a hero. You're a hero. Thank you very much. So you guys can get your votes in on that right now. You can get that vote on there right now. Jump in while you can. That's going to be there, as I say, running through until next week. And the only other thing I would ask is, Aerodonel, if you would be so kind as to just link that in the Discord, that would be great as well. Yeah, you added an extra I, but it works anyway. So, yeah, the winner, that goes till next week. There we go. Perfect. Huzzah! Excellent. Yeah, so if you're able to put a link into... Thanks, Aradinel. Thank you, man, so much. If you're able to put a link in Discord for me at some point, that would be great. But otherwise, we're going to do this until next week. So next week at the end of the session will be the close of the vote. So now's your chance to get the vote in. Thank you all very much. That is going to do it for me over here. But as I say, I'll be over in a little over 2 hours over on GOG. I want to thank everyone who made this an awesome stream today. First of all, thank you to Cubicle 7 for sponsoring us. And thank you to my wonderful players today, Terry Toons and Will Jones, Mr. Encounter Roleplay himself. Thank you so much. We will have Amal, Elmatar, and hopefully Trendane back with us next week. So that will be what's happening with that. I want to thank Wise Growth as well for support of the Patreon. And again, I will send you a copy of that poem down the line, Wise Growth. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Aradinel and Dragonspear, for being awesome. If you like what you saw, please follow the channel. Support the channel by checking out and subscribing to the YouTube, !ArvTube, the Twitter, !ArvTweets. Don't forget about the Discord, !ArvCord. You can find out all of that at arvaneleron.com. And as a reminder, if you haven't done so already, please check your notifications and make sure that you have this channel clicked on for notifying, because what happens is they by default shut off your notifications, which drives me up a wall, but they do it, so whatever. So that means that people may not know that I go live, and I would obviously like everybody to know that I'm going live so they can come if they want to. So please make sure that your notifications on Twitch are set up properly so that you know when I'm here, and please spread the word and let people know about that as well. On the financial side, please check us out at !Arv Shop. You can get merchandise, including merchandise relating to Adventures in Middle-earth, the Terry Toons illustrated, and of course Curse Strahd, Infinity Beyond, that I often wear over there. We'll have Aspergenesis stuff over there in the not too distant future as well. !Arv Shop for that. !Arvtreon for that Patreon, so that you too can get an epic poem written about you, just like Wise Growth was kind enough to do. And last but certainly not least, we've got that sub button right above the video window, sitting right now at about 46 to 47 subs. Again, that really does make a difference, makes it possible for me to do stuff that I do on the channel. And so any support that you can give along those lines would be very much appreciated. So please consider supporting us over there as well. No raid for today because we're going to be over at GOG at 4 p.m. So I want to thank again Aradinel and Dragonspear. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Aradinel, Dragonspear, and Nonstop. Thank you for their sub support. Appreciate it very much. Thanks to Wise Growth for his Patreon support too. Thank you to my wonderful viewers, Alfred Judicus, Axiomatic Human, Big Boss, Commander Root, Daedalus, Electrical Longboard, Aranth, Jagtress, Karahemd, Kobold Press. Thank you, Kobold Press. Thank you to Lurks. Thank you to Mubot, I guess. Thank you to Marinda. Thank you to Burkito Show. Thank you to Questionable Results. Thank you to Stewart43, U Christensen, V&K, Valerian Gamer, Video Store Cowboy, and Virgo Praz. Thank you one and all. That's going to do it for me, and I will see all of you lovely people right back here over at GOG, I should say, at 4 p.m. for Pen and Pixels and Pathfinder Kingmaker, and then back on this channel on Friday evening for Aspergenesis. Until then, everyone have a good one, and I'll see you lovely people soon. Be good to each other. Bye for now.